Liana, a powerful witch with fire magic, wields ice magic, which people call the continent's disaster because of her plan to destroy the world. The witch, like her 6 henchmen who always follow her, belongs to the 7 scourges of Runabout and is their queen. Liana had been a cruel witch since childhood, who easily mastered all the powers she had now and knew no pity for her enemies. At the age of 15, the witch burned to the ground an entire empire that was opposed to her. A war broke out, and disasters settled in the depths of Liana's heart. The witch knew no boundaries and continued to increase the number of her subordinates sent to the lands. The frightened people who saw them called them demons. Humanity was on the verge of extinction. Many people were ready to bow their heads to the witch so as not to wage senseless and bloody wars with her anymore. But the darkness that had surrounded them since the appearance of the bloodthirsty witch in their lives suddenly dissipated, illuminated by the bright light of hope for salvation. People rejoiced, because this light was a hero who could save them from the oppression of a powerful witch. The hero was the Holy Father of Asperia, a man who obeyed the will of the goddess Asperia and carried it out, and people saw him as a savior. The witch saw in the Holy Father her worst enemy. Her face, at the sight of the Holy Father, was distorted in a grimace of disgust. He was disgusting to her. Their war soon led to a fierce battle between the Holy Asperia and the Dark Forces, a battle between 2 completely different beliefs and morals. The confrontation between the 2 forces lasted 5 years. No one wanted to give in. Both sides tried to defend their positions at any cost. After Liana's death, the darkness agreed to a treaty with Holy Asperia. The war ended in peace, and all the events described below take place 50 years after her. The Archbishop carefully rewrites the chronicle with a purple pen with a golden tip. The image of the Holy Father can be seen on the old paper. A woman in white clothes enters the room, bows to the man, and, lowering her head, announces the request of the Holy Father to gather all the servants of the goddess at his place. The Archbishop's hand trembled over the sheet of paper, gripping the pen tighter and showing how much Bachman strained at the words of the woman who had just entered. With regret on his face, he turns to the woman, stops writing. The time has come, and Bachman understands this very well. All the servants of the goddess have gathered around the Holy Father's bed, mourning his imminent death and listening attentively to his last speeches before leaving for the other world. The Holy Father stretches his hands up incoherently, interrupted with each breath, saying that the goddess of Asperia has not yet left any of them. His hands rise higher and higher to the fresco depicting the appearance of the goddess Asperia, who, according to him, will soon appear to the saints in the form of a child. Thunder roars outside the window. The Holy Father gives the servants of the goddess his last parting words, asks them to find the Holy Child as soon as possible, and leaves the earthly world. Tears begin to flow from the eyes of the people crowded around him. They scream and sob, realizing that the hero of the continent is dying in front of their eyes, and they cannot help him. The Holy Father's hands weaken and fall on the bed. He takes his last breaths and leaves the world of the living forever. His death greatly shakes the mood of the people. The saints stand outside and discuss how they will search for the child. They worry about the awareness of the carriers of disasters and decide not to announce the death of the Holy Father yet. Bachman stands aside from the crowd, thinking hard about something. A drop of rain suddenly falls on his face, forcing the Archbishop to distract himself from his thoughts. In a few seconds, several thousand of the same fall after one drop, and a downpour begins. The sky shares human pain and sheds tears on the ground in the form of rain. Suddenly, Bachman hears a loud crying of a child. He is very surprised, determines where the sound is coming from, breaks off, and quickly runs in his direction. The source of the lamentation is somewhere in the depths of the forest, where the Archbishop goes, completely ignoring the small obstacles in the form of puddles and branches on the way. He runs out from behind another bush, and his face is illuminated by a faint divine light. Bachman decides to go further and find its source. The light source is on the edge of the fountain. The light near it becomes brighter, creating a magical feeling of the presence of something unearthly. Bachman comes closer and finds a small child in a basket, and this magical glow emanates from him, and the Archbishop is amazed at such a miracle. The baby in the basket sobs loudly and calms down a little when he notices Bachman, who believes that the birth of the child is a fulfilled prophecy of the Holy Father. The Archbishop sits down next to the girl, stretches out his hands to her, sheds a tear of happiness, and calls the baby Saint. He, like other priests, was very much looking forward to her arrival. The saint looks at him as if she understands everything that the archbishop is talking about and even stops crying, as if she is listening attentively to Bachman's words. But her mood changes very quickly. Her eyes are filled with unjustified rage directed at the archbishop. The girl flies up from Bachman's arms, kicking him in the face and saying something unintelligible, which has the meaning of an appeal for the archbishop to get away from her. A saint, a name that can only belong to the incarnation of the goddess, must occupy a place even higher than that of the Holy Father. She must save the continent, using all the power given to her from birth, protect people from various misfortunes, and save the people from the witch Liana. But the saint, unexpectedly even for herself, turns out to be the reincarnation of Liana and is not going to save anyone. She is furious at the actions of the archbishop who honors her. Purple eyes and beautiful blonde hair are characteristic only of the goddess, so Bachman confidently calls the girl the saint. Mary rejoices so much that tears flow from her eyes, and George III thinks that with the appearance of the saint, everyone on their continent and beyond has received a blessing. The three of them gather near the saint, stand almost close to her, and thank her for her quick visit. The baby looks at them with displeasure, amazed at their naivety and lack of understanding. These people will never be able to understand who she really is. She is very angry at how wrong everything that is happening to her now is. The girl should not have ended up in this body. Liana remembers all the lives she had to live. She managed to be in the body of a princess of the empire, in the body of a weak-willed slave. She had even become a land animal like a deer, a cat or a bird, and even a fish, and Liana had been reborn many times in the bodies of various creatures. The girl was so fed up with this vicious circle of life and death that she decided to try to destroy the world in order to stop this never-ending cycle. Liana is overwhelmed with despair from a new rebirth because she has already lived more than 100 lives, but she has not been able to prevent another rebirth. The baby burst into tears, releasing all the accumulated emotions and creating a glow around herself thanks to divine power, Bachman notes with amazement. Liana pays attention to him, recalls her last meeting with Bachman, mentally notices that she is in fact an atheist and does not believe in the goddess. She had already encountered the archbishop during the battle with the saints, but then he was much younger, and people more often called him the Sacred Shield rather than Bachman. The man has aged a lot since then. His face is covered with wrinkles, he has grown a beard and lost all the hair from his head. The girl's eyes widen in surprise as she tries to figure out how many years have passed since her previous rebirth. She remembers her friends. Liana has no idea where they are now, how they are, how the war ended, what happened to everyone she knows. She knows absolutely nothing. Sister Maria suddenly carefully lays the baby on her back, which causes her great bewilderment. She smiles pleasantly and informs the saint that she is going to change her diaper, and without further ado gets down to business. Liana freezes, but this does not save her from changing the diaper, and under her screams, calling to stop the attempt to violate human rights, the diaper is still changed for her. The girl is completely infuriated by this. She clenches her fists tightly and closes her eyes to stop the flow of hysterical tears. She loses her temper, vows to reclaim her powerful powers and kill everyone involved in the misunderstanding that just happened. After drinking milk, the saint fell asleep right in the arms of Mary, who suggested that Bachman and Georg not tell people about the birth of the saint, so as not to make an unnecessary fuss. The archbishop agrees with her, but remarks that the saint needs protection because the forces of darkness are still alive and intends to continue thinking about this topic. But he is interrupted by Georg, who tells Bachman to do his job quietly, assuring him that he and Maria will be able to protect the baby. The saint will be safe. He is about to say something else, but he is interrupted by the creak of the mighty front door to the room. Georg and Bachman turn at the sound at the same time, giving the newcomer scrutinizing glances. He arrived just in time. In the huge doorway stands a little boy, George IV, who looks very much like his father, but it is clear from his face that he thinks quite differently. Georg is very intelligent and talented. He has the blood of a paladin family, but according to Bachman, he is still too young. George III asks his son to introduce himself to Bachman and Maria, trying to show his upbringing in the best possible light. The boy, in response to his father's request, only silently bows, and his father justifies him because the younger George is not yet very sociable. George IV clenches his fists tighter, thinking about the reasons for his coming here and the words of his father, comes to the conclusion that his father is a liar. The boy is entrusted with the protection of the saint, and he considers this matter completely uninteresting and too boring. He dreams of managing his own life. He sees the saint as just a small child and believes that she does not need any protection, and he himself is not obliged to do such a thing. The boy remembers his father's words that he just needs to watch the girl. These words make him mad. He wants to become independent and leave this house. At the same time, in the lair of the forces of darkness, a fulfilled prophecy and the return of the saint are discussed over a game of chess. A girl with green hair, who makes a queen move with the help of magic, says that she has been waiting for a long time for the moment when the Holy Father finally disappears and lies in a coffin. The man playing with her condemns her for these thoughts and recalls the wisdom of a planted sprout that eventually turns into a tree and becomes a problem if left uncut. He shows her the meaning of this wisdom on a chess piece, which, with the help of magic, he breaks into small pieces. The girl agrees with him, but continues to grumble, nothing can be changed, because the Holy Father died, and his dying prophecy came true, and the saint was born. Her words are interrupted by insolent laughter. The girl's eyes light up. She turns angrily to Jack, the source of the laughter. He has no right to laugh at her. Jack encourages the girl to think, says that she is too sad about the future. They are strong enough to deal with the prophecy of the Holy Father. In his speech, Jack mentions the death of the queen, which finally infuriates the girl. Her eye begins to twitch. The veins on her face swell with tension. She yells at him. He shouldn't have pressed on the sore spot and is going to hit him with her magic. Jack also uses magical powers to defend himself and retaliate. The man sitting on the throne, who had been silently watching the scuffle before, calls on his comrades to stop. There is absolutely no point in their argument, and it would be better for them to think that they must protect this place until the queen returns. In this regard, the man orders Jack to destroy the saintess who has appeared. Jack was going to do it himself, and since it is necessary, he will go and do it right now. He walks to the exit past the girl, who follows him with disgust. Jack promises to do everything quietly. At parting, he asks Chrome, the man who gave him the order, to take care of the queen and the safety of this place. The orphan stands in front of the magician and asks to teach her. The man sees no point in teaching the girl because she has not improved her skills at all, but the orphan asks again. Then the man asks why she wants to learn magic, and the girl honestly answers that she has a wish that she can fulfill only with the help of magic. The man silently looks at her, does not answer, but decides to take her as his student. He asks the girl what her name is. The baby does not have a name. The man is surprised and puts his hand on her back encouragingly. The man tells the girl to henceforth be called Liana, a name that means bright light. Liana wakes up with tears in her eyes. Because it is not the first time she has dreamed of her former teacher and mentor, these dreams have always excited her. Liana did not manage to master even the most basic magical skills from the very beginning. Perhaps, if it were not for the teacher's ability to lend a helping hand to the girl in time, she would not have become the Archmage of Runabelt. The man helped her learn the most basic magical techniques, helped her get used to the world, and became a dear person for her. He helped the girl feel what happiness is, gave her a house, gave her a name with a beautiful meaning, and endowed her with many beautiful memories. They did not live together for too long, but every second that the girl spent in the company of the old man made her feel warm in her soul. She rejoiced with him at her first achievements in magic, wanted to reach new heights for him. This man easily gave her a happy life, and with the same ease he took her away, took away the girl's happiness, forced her to lose her home, and turned her into a cruel person. It was he who created the powerful witch, the threat of the continent. It was he who turned Liana into the person she is now. This man also became the creator of forbidden magic, which Liana now wants so much to find. The girl remembers this and prepares to start searching for her treasure from the beginning of tomorrow. She is going to search the entire palace. The servants of the goddess worry, pray to the Holy One, sent to them by the goddess for protection from disasters. They pray because of a messenger from Runabelt, who appeared in the morning, who allowed himself to chop wood without covering his torso, and thus frightened all the acolytes. And after chopping wood, he had the audacity to pester the servants who delivered food, embarrassed them with his behavior, and did not allow them to work in peace. Acolytes must confess to the goddess every night so that such people do not appear again and do not bring them trouble. Little George, who was passing by, overheard this conversation and thought deeply about something, looking at the frightened saints. Suddenly, his father called out to him, bringing the boy out of the abyss of thoughts, and asked him to follow him and keep up. George ran after his father. He realized that the decision of the saints to announce the death of the Holy Father was foolish, because now there are many suspicious types in Asperia. George III suddenly stops in front of the entrance to the saint's bedroom, and his son is puzzled. Turning his head towards his father, the boy saw that tears were flowing down his face and was amazed, because his father had always seemed to him a man incapable of tears. In fact, these are tears of happiness caused by the fact that the goddess has not yet left their family, despite the fact that the ancestors of the Georges betrayed the saints. The father turns to his son, asks him not to lose face in front of the goddess, who is able to forgive them despite the mistakes of their ancestors. The boy understood him, but mentally amazed at his father's piety, they enter the room of the saint and find an empty crib. This frightens them. His father rushes from his seat, and George IV looks around the room in amazement, reaches for the hilt of his sword, turns around, and runs after his father. In one of the corridors of the building on the floor, he notices the saint quickly crawling away from them. The father does not notice the baby and runs forward. Liana rejoices in her successful escape, thinks over a plan to get into the room because the door handles are now too high for her. George IV shouts that he has found the girl, and she, very surprised by his sudden appearance, begins to crawl faster. The boy catches up with the saint, grabs her by the collar of her clothes, and calls the girl an asshole. This infuriates Liana. She clenches her little fists with force. George Thar fails to dodge her well-aimed blow. The saint hits him in the face with her fist with all her might. When George IV falls to the floor, Liana is triumphant, her fist not yet rusted, and her strength is still there. The boy quickly recovers from the blow, gets up and forbids the girl to crawl where she is going. Liana does not listen to him at all. George IV gets to his feet, stretches out his hands to the saint, and gently asks the child to crawl up to him, clearly trying to warn her against something. But Liana turned her attention to the boy's words that she could not move forward and decided that this was a sure sign that she had chosen the right path. The girl accelerates, quickly moving in a forbidden direction, which greatly frightens George IV. Clouds of dust rise from under her small legs. She rejoices at her successful escape again. The girl has always been not one of those children who listen to at least someone. Suddenly, she loses her footing, begins to fall, and realizes that she is on the stairs. Begins to understand why the boy did not want her to get into this part of the corridor. George IV runs after her. The saint screams. Both understand that if the girl falls, she will not get away with injuries, but most likely will die. The boy jumps after her, flies along the stairs, arms outstretched towards the child. Several frightened servants of the goddess watch the girl's rescue. George was able to catch the saint, but himself, completely disabling the instincts of self-preservation, fell on his stomach to the floor. The watchers held their breath. Silence reigned. The baby lies in Georg's arms and rejoices in saving her own life. The servants take her from the boy's arms and find scratches on the girl's knees. George himself is ordered to be tied up. This causes bewilderment in the saint, because the boy got even more than she herself. George's father runs in and is terribly frightened when he hears from the acolytes that his son has injured the precious saint, and many people have witnessed this. He admits the sin of his son, approaches the servants and asks them to punish themselves instead of the boy. Tears begin to flow down George IV's face. Someone in the crowd shouts that the entire George family will be court-martialed because of this incident, and the boy begins to cry, regretting his inexperience. The saint watching this cannot intervene, because no one will understand her words anyway, and then George will surely be killed. Suddenly, she hears a voice addressing the crowd of servants and urging them to listen to him, as a person who has seen everything that is happening from the very beginning. The acolytes turn to the speaker, who turns out to be a messenger from Runnabelt. The saint finally recognizes him by his voice, recognizing this man as Jack, the magician of lust from the 7 scourges of Runnabelt. Liana cannot understand the reasons for his appearance here, nor can the servants, but they still have to listen to the messenger. Jack says that George saved the baby's life, and the girl peers into his face, trying to guess his intentions. The servants are afraid of him, do not want to come into contact with him. They do not understand why the messenger from Runnabelt meddles in their affairs. Jack smiles at the people around him and takes a step towards the tied-up boy, who, despite all the excuses, is likely to be killed. He stretches out his hand to George IV in an inviting and soothing gesture, bringing it to the boy's face. Jack asks the servants to give him Georg if they are going to kill him. George looks at him with obvious embarrassment on his face. But soon he gets the meaning of what the messenger said, and he opens his mouth wide, speechless. The crowd around and the boy's father are also amazed to hear Jack's words. The servant, in whose arms the saint is sitting, holds her tighter and asks Jack why they would give him the boy. Leanna tries to find benefits for Jack in his actions, but cannot understand why he is doing what he is doing. The girl recalls the peculiarities of Jack's morals, which she noticed during her previous rebirth. Jack has always considered love to be the highest force. He often offered strange strategies for waging battles, tied to turning all participants in the battle into prisoners of love. Leanna was always amazed by his ideas. The girl realizes that Jack has always been like this, loved to pull off love tricks, respected all forms of love, and could make anyone fall in love with him. In fact, this man had not changed either internally or externally. Leanna was not surprised at all. Jack, during her thoughts, tries to convince the servants to give him the boy because it will mean nothing to them at all. In response to these statements, they begin to bicker, argue with Jack, prove him wrong, and are not going to compromise. Jack smiles in response, takes an elegant step forward, and releases a cloud of pheromones using his lust mage powers. People around them are speechless. Their tongues begin to tangle. They seem to get drunk. An unhealthy blush appears on their cheeks. Jack bewitches them with his powers. Leanna covers her nose with her palm, trying not to inhale the resulting shiny cloud so as not to succumb to the actions of the messenger's charms. Jack still does not recognize her, because he is busy implementing some kind of plan and does not expect to find his former queen in the form of a baby among his enemies. Leanna decides to attract the attention of the messenger and begins to squeal in the arms of the servant. The girl panics. Jack pays attention to the commotion and turns his head towards the saint, glaring at her coldly. The maid lowers the baby to the floor. Jack decides that the girl wants to approach him, as she must have fallen under his spell. The saint sighs tiredly and rises to her feet. The servants of the goddess gasp in surprise. Usually babies at this age do not walk. The girl, swaying, stands on trembling legs. All eyes are directed at her. A surprised whisper sweeps through the room. She begins to take bold steps towards Jack, which indescribably pleases the man who is proud of himself. He squats closer to the floor. Because the young lady must have gone to him to get acquainted, he stretches out his hands to the girl, smiling happily. Jack is very surprised when the saint walks past him, running around him along the trajectory of a crooked snake. The girl confidently approaches George IV sitting on the floor and stands in front of him, looking at the boy contemptuously, remembering how he blocked her way. The saint leans on his leg and carefully falls with her whole body on George's knees, attracting everyone's attention to herself. The servants of the goddess and Jack look at her. Amazed at what they see, they take it as a good sign. The saint was very tired, and she really closed her eyes, preparing to fall asleep. She tried to show the servants that George was a good person, and she succeeded. Jack silently ponders the situation, and after a few seconds changes his face and smiles at the saint, trying to let Leanna know that he recognized her. The girl winces, looking at him, trying to understand whether Jack guessed or not, but does not come to a final answer. George was forgiven all his sins and the charge of disobedience after the saint of her own free will fell on his knees. From that day on, in the name of George III's father, George IV was made a Knight of the Saint, which greatly shocked him afterwards. The saint is put to bed. She lies in a spacious room filled with fresh air in a small crib, completely alone. The girl appears to be asleep, but she opens her eyes abruptly, checking to see if everyone has left the room and if the servants are watching her. After making sure that everyone has already gone to bed, the saint carefully gets out of the crib and walks towards the front door to the room, about to make another brilliant escape. She remembers Jack's changed face. He probably recognized her, and the girl played this whole show for a reason. The saint carefully moves a huge chair to the door in order to reach the doorknob. She tries to do everything so that this time she does not get caught. The girl reaches for the door, but it suddenly opens by itself. The saint loses her support and begins to fall into the resulting opening. She puts her hands in front of her, trying to defend herself, but is already mentally preparing for the end of her 101st life. Suddenly, Jack appears from the doorway. who quickly catches Liana falling, not allowing the girl to die in such a stupid way. He peers into the girl's face, calls her a whispering child, and then confirms Liana's guesses. He really recognized her. Liana tries to say hello to him, but she only manages to pronounce incoherent sounds that do not look like human speech at all. The girl is very upset about this, but at the same time she is very happy about the appearance of Jack. She tries very hard to ask Jack why he is there, but she fails and tries to say it again, failing again. In frustration, the girl flares up with the fire of rage and begins to scream loudly and still indistinctly. At this moment, Jack snaps his fingers, creating a small ball of bright yellow magic near him. The ability to speak clearly returns to the saint at the moment when she shouts curses, and these words fly out of her mouth quite clearly. From her own voice, the girl falls into a stupor, opens her eyes wide and forgets to close her open mouth. Jack admits to using the strength of the spirit. Handling the powers of spirits is his forte. Jack plays with his fingers with the spirits that have appeared near him and asks Liana if she is happy to see him here. The man's manner of speech has not changed at all, Liana notices this, and Jack reminds the girl of her invariable rudeness. Liana sees a good chance in his appearance, because in a new reincarnation she wanted to use her power, but now she radiates only divine energy. Jack sympathizes with the difficulties of the girl's situation, but she ignores him and tries to find out how and why he got here. The messenger Runabelt was sent to Asperia by Chrome to take revenge on his enemies by killing the saint. Now, Liana is an enemy for her former comrades, and this greatly upsets her. The girl clenches her fists, straining, and Jack is very surprised and asks if the heroine really does not remember her past life. Liana thinks about it. She remembers all her past lives, but she can never remember her deaths, as if these memories are deliberately erased. For the first time, she thinks that all this, including her reincarnations and erased memories of deaths, is very strange. Jack suddenly falls to his knees and begins to sob, making the main character shudder from surprise. She looks at him intensely as he begins to lament the injustice of life towards Liana and lament her lost memories of the day she died. Liana asks Jack not to cry and just tell her everything as it is, because tears cannot help grief. Jack looks up at her sadly. The spirit around him is also upset. He, Jack, has to tell Liana about her death in a past life. On the last night before the start of the battle on Holy Asperia, someone poisoned the girl right at the feast. On the last night before leaving for the fight, Liana gathered together with the 7 sins, and together they raised their glasses to victory. The girl pronounced a loud toast, in which she convinced her comrades of their absolute invincibility and imminent victory. After that, she gave a couple more motivational speeches and raised a glass above her head. These actions are the last thing she can remember from her past life. Having listened to Jack's story, the heroine rejoices that, at least after her death, her followers fulfilled her will and asks Jack where they are now. Jack looks at the girl sympathetically. After the death of the Queen of Disasters, there are only 6 disasters left. About 50 years after her death, all sins began to regret not being able to protect her then and wasting time. The saints offered the powers of darkness to conclude a peace treaty with them, but all the sins were sure of their involvement in the death of the queen and did not compromise. During the last celebration with the Queen of Calamity magicians, there were only 6 of them. One of them did not show up. All sins begin to suspect the only one absent from the ceremony, but he desperately defends himself. A pointless dispute ensues between all the sins, during which they suspect each of their allies of murdering the queen. Chrome hits his fist loudly on the table to stop the senseless noise, and he succeeds. Everyone in the room falls silent. He convinces his comrades that the queen will soon return, and until then, he asks them to protect Ronabelt, perform their duties, and preserve the queen's body. Until she returns, the sins will not be able to trust each other, so Chrome asks only those who are loyal to the queen to stay. In the end, only 2 left. They left along a deserted road where no one heard or knew anything more about them. Beatrice, the sin of envy, had heard that the first sin gone had gone missing, and Chrome looked at her and Jack with a questioning look. He hadn't expected to see them there. Beatrice stays only for her dream of having a throne next to the queen's throne, and Jack stays for Chrome, who will surely be bored waiting alone. Chrome does not thank them, only turns towards the setting sun. He thinks their decision is right. Gradually, the sins forgot about the misdeeds of the saints, but as soon as the news of the saint's birth appeared, Chrome sent Jack to kill her. But Jack quickly recognized Liana's new rebirth in the saint, and after finishing his story, he smiled at the girl and asked her to go home with him. The saint refuses because she has not yet found the forbidden magic of her teacher, but she likes the idea of getting out of the temple under the power of Jack's spirits. Jack was puzzled by her refusal. He put his hand on his heart and asked with sincere surprise what was the reason for such a choice of the girl. Liana looked down at the floor. It became clear to Jack that the reason for the refusal was precisely forbidden magic. He made this assumption aloud. The girl raised her head and resolutely looked into Jack's eyes. Her rebirth in the body of a saint was a great chance to find treasure. She had spent her entire past life searching for forbidden magic created by her master, and she was not going to lose her chance to find it now. Jack thinks that in this case, she needs to return to Runabelt, because there she can gather all her friends again and start a fight with Asperia. Runabelt's throne has been empty for a very long time, and every time the Queen's henchmen look at it, emptiness creeps into their hearts. He kneels down in front of Liana and says that all sins have been believed and waited for a long time, and finally their prayers have been heard. He takes the girl's hand in his palms and asks her to think a little more. Liana thinks that everyone in Runabelt is waiting for her like Jack and begins to doubt her decision, but still decides that at such a time it is necessary to think rationally. She tells Jack that their enemies are not as simple as they seem. The face of sin instantly becomes serious. Hands drop. The girl does not want to make senseless sacrifices and honestly admits to Jack that the reason why she is looking for forbidden magic concerns only herself. She cannot yet understand exactly what is what. She does not even know who is responsible for her death, so it is too risky to start acting now. But the fact that in her next reincarnation Liana became a saint, she sees a great opportunity to find forbidden magic. Jack looks at Liana with understanding, smiles slightly at her and tries to come to terms with the fact that the girl does not seem to change her decision. He takes the saint in his arms and carries her to the cradle, agreeing that she will be safe in the child's body. Laying her down, he says that he will not mention her in Runabelta until she is 5 years old. Before that, she must be careful so that the saints do not understand who she is. In the morning, Sister Mary notices that the saint is not in the mood. She is worried about her because the saint must sleep well in order to be healthy. The baby closes her eyes from the light and reflects on the night meeting, decides that too much time has passed since her death. The girl would age over time, like all saints, but Jack, who had lived for more than 50 years, had not changed a bit since their last meeting. Liana decides that, like Jack, none of her comrades have aged. The first thing that pops up in her head is the vague outline of Chrome. Remembering him, she thinks that if Chrome finds out where she is, then there will be no ashes left of the powerful Asperia because of his pressure. Liana realizes how humiliating it was to die in the arms of her comrades right before the fight. Chrome must be angry with her. At the same time, Jack returns to Runabelt. He loudly announces his return to Beatrice and waves in greeting. A grimace of disgust appears on the girl's face. She drops her pen and clutches a sheet of paper into a ball, on which she wrote something only a couple of seconds ago. Jack talks about his visit to Saint Asperia, calls the saint his favorite person. Beatrice understands this and scolds him. Jack is surprised to notice Chrome's empty place and asks Beatrice where he went. The girl stops screaming, calms down and replies that Chrome recently left with a bouquet of flowers. She assumes that he went to see the Queen, having taken a couple of flowers from a vase for her, and turns out to be right. Chrome sits on one knee in front of the coffin in which lies Liana's sinful body. Looking at the girl as if he feels no emotion at the sight of her lifeless body, he asks when she will return to them, but receives no answer. The dead body of Liana, lying in a coffin filled with flowers, responds to him with silence. Nothing betrays in the girl a person who died from poison. It seems that she is just sleeping. The battlefield is illuminated by the setting sun. The bodies of the slain and the fragments of swords cast shadows on the sand. They are surrounded by emptiness, emphasizing the atmosphere of doom. The majestic figures of Runabelt's envoys tower over the only living man left on the battlefield, their faces hidden in shadow. Chrome tells Liana that this man, George II, the strongest paladin of the Empire, was sent from Asperia by the Holy Father to destroy the Ambassadors of Darkness. George II examines the Ambassadors of Darkness, fixes his gaze on Liana and carefully looks into the girl's cold eyes, studying. Unexpectedly for her, the man suddenly opens his eyes wide and begins to confess his love to Liana, begs the girl to make George her slave. She looks at him in amazement, unable to close her mouth open in shock and utter a single word in response to the man's unexpected confession. The crone behind her is furious, begins to draw a sword. George II himself asks for a cruel death. Lyanna, realizing his intentions, is very frightened and shouts for the enraged crone to calm down. The saint sneezes while lying in her crib. Goosebumps run down her skin from such memories, and in confirmation of these thoughts, her body begins to tremble. A worried George III suddenly appears in front of the girl, who scared the hell out of the baby. He asks the girl if she is cold. He lifts the girl in his arms and brings her closer to his face, saying that he will now bring her a blanket. The saint, in response, begins to scream and tries to move away from George. The man, upset, asks his son why the saint doesn't like it when he is close, and George IV suggests that she was frightened by his abrupt appearance. And Lyanna, in fact, did not expect to meet the descendants of the sin of idleness in her new rebirth. The sin of idleness was George II, the paladin of the temple, who had long ago betrayed the saints and joined a powerful witch. Now there are two descendants of this man at once, a nephew and his son, respectively, and the nephew is very similar to his ancestor, and George IV is not. Suddenly, the saint hears a voice that asks how long she has been waiting, and the girl opens her eyes wide, stops screaming. Sister Maria comes into the room, holding a soft bundle of something. She brings the girl a warm blanket. Tears appear in the eyes of the saint. She sincerely rejoices at the appearance of Mary, because she has been waiting for her for a very long time. Mary hugs the baby. The saint admires the gentle voice and gentle hands of this woman, mentally thanks for the opportunity to breathe freely. Suddenly, a servant of the goddess appears from the doorway and asks Mary if she has a saint, and Mary asks what happened. The altar boy replies that Mr. Bachman has requested an audience, and the saint must go to meet him right now. George IV asks Mary when Bachman managed to become a master. If he was an archbishop until recently, Maria replies that soon he will become the new Holy Father. She reminds that it was Bachman who found the saint, and it is he who will now receive the highest church rank, which will allow him not to bow his head to others. Mary, with the saint in her arms, accompanied by Georg, enters Bachman's office. Lyanna notes that no one can become more influential than the incarnation of the goddess. Bachman asks Maria and Georg to leave him alone with the saint, says that he has to tell her something, and takes the girl away from Mary's arms. Bachman says that the conversation will not take long, and the saint is surprised to realize that he is going to talk to a child who, at his age, should not understand anything. She clings to the thought and thinks that Bachman has figured out who she really is, but unexpectedly, the former archbishop begins the story, interrupting the girl's thoughts. Bachman tells her about the first Holy Father who built this temple and left a fresco depicting the goddess inside. This fresco shows the human form of the goddess. It is the last message that the saints were able to receive from the goddess through the Holy Father. The baby is enthusiastically looking at the image, listening to the man's speeches, but their meaning does not reach her immediately. Bachman tilts his head, his face hidden in the shadows, and he informs the saint with sadness in his voice that no other saint has received such signs from the goddess. The girl is greatly amazed. She finally understands the meaning of Bachman's words. She understands that all the prophecies that the previous Holy Father passed on were lies. The saint thinks that the Holy Father has been a fraud all this time, and the Temple of Asperia has lied to people for more than 500 years while preaching holiness. Despite all this, the goddess still did not abandon her servants. She sent a second revelation in the form of a holy child, her incarnation. He brings the saint to the statue depicting the face of the previous Holy Father and says that it was he who predicted her birth. A stone statue depicting this great man silently looks at the girl who has appeared, proudly raising its head. Lyanna, looking at the statue, notes that this is a rather funny irony, because she has not very pleasant memories of this person from her past life. Bachman tells the little girl that this and other truths are passed down by the saints from generation to generation through the chronicles, and now the role has passed to him. It tells about the prophecy of the end of the world, left by the goddess 500 years ago, and about the archwitch of Asperia, whose goal was to obtain forbidden magic. The witch was defeated, but even after her death, she still had followers who did not give up trying to find forbidden magic. He thanks the saint for her appearance, saying that it became, without exaggeration, the last hope for the saints, a sign that the goddess had not abandoned them. The little girl lowers her eyes to the floor. She thinks about the meaning of the words of the new Holy Father and mentally disagrees with him. Bahman and the rest of the servants of the goddess consider the saint to be their last hope, believe in her and hope for their salvation. But they don't even know that the Holy One is actually a calamity that will destroy all their dreams, hopes, and this world. These thoughts amuse Liana, and she giggles softly, rejoicing at how easy it all is for her. Liana believes that this goddess does not really exist, and if there is, then she made a very big mistake by allowing Liana to be reborn in the body of this child. The girl, having waited for the end of Bachman's speeches, decided to turn to him and find out where the forbidden magic was. She tried to tell him that she wanted to see it. Suddenly, Bachman's expression changed. A dark shadow fell on his face. His eyes stared into nowhere. Noticing the change in his behavior, the girl remembered Jack's warning that if the priests found out who she really was, they would not just let the girl go. Her face was covered with perspiration. She squinted apprehensively at the new Holy Father, warily waiting for what would happen next. The man's face tensed, his hands trembled, his whole body trembled after them. His eyes widened and he thought deeply about something. The little girl began to wonder what would happen to her next if Bachman managed to figure out who she was, despite his lack of intelligence for such conclusions. Suddenly, the man broke off and ran towards the front door, carefully holding the baby in his arms. He opens the door with a bang and shouts to Sister Mary to inform her that the saint has done some business. Liana opens her eyes and mouth wide, silently amazed at the Holy Father's lack of judgment, and watches how they begin to fuss around her. Bachman hands the saint into the hands of Mary, who notices the unnatural pallor of the baby, and begins to fussily, looking for a place to change the diaper. Bachman, stepping a little to the side, sighs with relief, glad that he will not have to change the girl's diaper himself. The man tenses his hands, grabs the column with them. A bright light begins to shine from under his palms. The veins on his face tense. The man clenches his teeth and lifts a huge column with an effort. Mary watches as if this is not the first time she has seen such a thing, and with a smile tells the saint to look at her new stone crib. Bachman is glad that he managed to back her back unnoticed. Maria thanks him and assures the saint that she will immediately change her diaper. Liana frowns. Such muscles should not frighten her, because at one time she had more powers. But for herself, she decides that she will try to ask the saints about forbidden magic again when she can speak clearly. For this, she will only have to wait. Next, the events taking place in the same place are shown, but 5 years later, Bachman helps a simple servant carry heavy bags, for which he is sincerely thanked. Everything is not at all difficult for the Holy Father, and he is only happy to help ordinary people in their ordinary affairs. Watching them, the servants of the goddess discuss Bachman's thick hair, which appeared after some blessing. One of the acolytes asks what this blessing is, and the girl standing opposite him is about to answer him, and just at that moment the saint runs past her. A girl in a lush light pink dress, illuminated by the bright morning sun, runs, shouting the name of the Holy Father. The man responds to her call. A happy smile appears on his face at the sight of the girl. The saint runs straight towards him, her dress and thick blonde hair blowing in the wind as she runs fast. Running close enough, the saint jumps up and tries to hit Bachman, but he puts his hands up in time to defend himself. The girl shouts that Bachman should have taken her away, and the man only smiles stupidly in response and thanks the saint for choosing to reward him with her presence. Suddenly, they both hear a woman scream, faintly coming from somewhere deep in the building, calling for the saint to return to him. The girl turns and runs to the voice, notifying everyone that she is leaving. The acolytes notice that the saint is very energetic, as always. Now the little saint is already 5 years old, and for all 5 years, she has been trying to find out from Bachman where forbidden magic is stored. But each time the girl receives the same answer, Bachman says that he will tell her about this magic when she is old enough. Liana realizes that the man is not going to tell her anything until she comes of age, and decides to deal with everything herself. The saint runs to the voice that she heard during a conversation with Bachman, and finds out that it is Sister Maria who is looking for her to prepare for the approaching dinner. The girl hides behind the columns and giggles when she realizes what power she is gradually gaining over all these people, although she is still at such a young age. She also rejoices that she was finally able to easily connect with the divine power she received during her rebirth. Although the girl does not like it too much, the first manifestation of her power was Bachman's cure of alopecia, a disease associated with the complete baldness of some parts of the body. She decides to get to the bottom of the truth today, when suddenly she hears a strange voice from the darkness, which, without emotion, announces that she has finally found the saint. The girl looks at this man and notices his unusual energy. The man's face is completely hidden under the hood. From his belt, he unexpectedly pulls out a sharpened knife. The man is clearly going to do something bad, while making speeches in praise of Runabelt. The glitter of the knife is reflected in the eyes of the saint. She carefully observes the actions of the man, and when he screams for her to finally die, the girl begins to move. She jumps high, kicks the man in the stomach, and asks him to repeat what he just said. The killer bends in half, drooling from his mouth. He is amazed at the strength of this little child, wonders why a simple child has such strength. Memories run through his head of the words of Chroma, who asks the man not to treat the girl condescendingly just because she is a child. The hood falls off the man's face. He lies on his back on the cold floor and cannot recover from the blow. The girl puts her foot on his chest, towers over the man, casting a shadow on his face, contemptuously calls him grandfather, and forces him to look into her eyes. She says that since the man is going to die anyway, then let him at least satisfy her curiosity before he dies. The man is angry at the saint, who believes that he can give her information so easily, and begins to look for poison in the folds of his clothes for suicide. The girl gets ahead of him and takes out a capsule with poison, which she had previously found in the man's clothes and managed to pull out during the blow. She says that a man should not say goodbye to his life, even if he faces great danger. With the help of divine powers, she destroys the capsule with poison and says that she will not let the man die just like that. The saint smiles ominously, towers over the man, and with steel in her voice, orders him to answer her questions. The man is lying unconscious. Liana is upset when she realizes that this guy knows nothing and calls him a dummy. The saint finds a knife in the man's possession and thinks that Jack was right when he told her about the murderers who would soon begin to appear in the temple. She decides that since the killers come one by one, it means they do not know who she really is. In the reflection of the knife, she sees the image of her past rebirth. Liana does not mind the fact that killers come more and more often, but she does not like to clean up their tracks, erase their memories, and hide weapons, and not receive information at the same time. The girl wanted to know from these people how her friends were doing, but decided that there was no need to worry about them because they were magically immortal and could not die of old age. George IV appears before the saint, rejoices that he has finally found her, and informs her about her sister Mary, who has not been able to find the girl for a long time. The saint points her finger at the man lying on the floor and reports that he suddenly lost consciousness and regrets that she was seen near the body again. Mary praises the saint for finding the man's body in time and notes that this is not the first time this has happened, and the girl, in response to her words, is simply embarrassed. She sighs and silently rejoices. The servants of the goddess have problems with observation, and this plays into the hands of the saint. Because of George IV, she can't properly search for magic, and if the saints find out about the killers, they will definitely strengthen the guards. Maria approaches the saint and strokes her head, wishing her good night. The girl even likes such a carefree atmosphere. Mary silently leaves the saint's room when she falls asleep and closes the door behind her, stopping in front of her for a second. Sister Maria's face is hidden in the shadows. The woman's lips are pressed into a thin stripe. She silently breaks away from her place and goes somewhere, trying not to make noise. At a large triangular table in a brightly lit room sit the servants of the goddess. Bachman sits at the head of the table. One of the seats is empty. The door creaks loudly, and unexpectedly for everyone, all the servants turn in its direction, their eyes round. The door is opened by two guards, and Sister Maria enters the room, apologizing for being late, bowing her head. Bachman smiles sweetly at the woman and says that she should not apologize. Because all the servants have gathered recently, Maria looks very alarmed. Bachman calls the woman to take a vacant seat. Mary sits down, and the Holy Father declares the meeting on the occasion of the saint open. The saints discuss that priests have often been found unconscious lately. They are losing their memories, and today a dangerous weapon was found next to one of the priests. But the most terrible thing for the servants of the goddess is that all this always happens near the Holy One. Bachman, in connection with these events, proposes to strengthen the protection of the saint. Two servants of the goddess agree with him. Omar, one of the acolytes, is indignant and protests against this idea, arguing his position that the church has no money. He is also supported by two. Bachman takes his opinion into account and turns to Sister Maria, asking what she thinks about this. Maria flinches at his question. The woman puts her hand to her heart, looks at Omar, and says that it would really not hurt to strengthen the security just in case. Now the saint is guarded only by George, and this is very little, and the protection of the saint is not included in the list of what you can save on. Omar loses his temper and shouts loudly that he does not mind the increased security, but the saints simply do not have money now and they cannot afford it. The saints simply do not listen to him. They discuss the reduction of donations, but they believe that the church still has money. Archbishop Omar clutches his head. The priests are not very versed in economics. He was responsible for the money. From this situation, he almost lost his last hair. Omar asks the servants of the goddess not to even stutter about strengthening the security until they get enough money. Maria silently thinks about something. Suddenly, she gets up from her seat, raises her hand, and says that if the lack of money is a problem, then she has an idea to solve it. Leanna stands, illuminated by the bright setting sun, her face hidden in the shadows. She is talking to Chrome and is about to tell him something. Chrome looks at her with interest, and the girl tells him that even after death, she will remember this life and will definitely return to Runnabelt in a new incarnation. The main character gives Chrome a potion of immortality and says that if he uses it, they will be able to meet again in a few decades. The girl grips his hand tightly and asks him to protect Runnabelt if she dies without receiving forbidden magic. All these are Chrome's memories, which he thinks hard about during the conversation. The man in the hoodie attracts his attention. Chrome admits that he thought a little, asks to repeat what he said. He is told that the Holy Temple decided to strengthen the security and opened a qualifying tournament for the sake of recruiting people. Chrome picks up the announcement of the tournament and finds out that participation in it is paid and is amazed that the saints take money from people for their work. The man in the hoodie suggests that the guards are being strengthened due to the increasing number of attacks, and Chrome asks if there is any news from the last suicide bomber sent. The last death row inmate has completely lost his memory, and because of this he began to serve the saints. Chrome ponders these words. He comes to the conclusion that this clearly could not have been done by short-sighted priests, and this is probably the work of the saint. After his words, Jack suddenly appears in the window, who was greatly encouraged by the mention of the saint. His appearance frightened the man. Chrome was not surprised at all. Chrome guesses that Jack was eavesdropping again with the power of spirits, and Jack ignores him and happily clarifies if it was really about the saint. Not hearing an answer, he asks permission to go to the tournament and says that if Chrome allows him, he will be very grateful later. Chrome sighs loudly, leans on the countertop, and refuses Jack, who is very surprised in response. Chrome rises from his seat, becomes gloomy, and declares that he will go to this church-organized tournament himself. Jack is surprised by Chrome's decision. He tries to change his mind, assuring him that he can hide his powers with the help of the power of spirits, and Chrome will quickly be discovered with his power. Chrome besieges him. Jack is already known to everyone as Runnabelt's messenger, and if he appears, everyone will immediately understand everything. Jack tries to dissuade Chrome again, asking who will stay in control of Runnabelt if he leaves, in response to which Chrome only silently rubs the ring. Then he takes off this ring and throws it somewhere. The ring is painted with a blue flame, which gradually turns into green. As a result, the ring falls into the hands of Beatrice. She would never have thought that Chrome would ever entrust her with his business. Beatrice promises to show what an outstanding leader she is, and asks Chrome not to return as long as possible, claiming that he should not worry about anything. Chrome replies that he trusts the girl, and a stunned Jack begins to scream and asks Chrome to listen to his words to the end. In response, a beam of blue fire magic flies into him, from which Jack jumps away in fright, with Chrome blaming him for everything. The decaying temple only began to rise up because Jack spared the saint 5 years ago. Chrome begins to suspect him of betrayal. Chrome notices that Jack was once very obsessed with Leanna, and now he has suddenly switched to the saint. He says that he is gradually becoming convinced that the saint is the reincarnation of Leanna and the like. Jack is horrified and falls silent, and Chrome declares that he must check everything for himself and decide if the saint is worthy of mercy. The priests are about to finally make an official announcement about the girl's existence, and the saint is very outraged by this. Maria also tells her the news that the girl's security will be strengthened in connection with the announcement. The strongest and most worthy people of the continent will gather in the church for her. The saint shouts that she does not want this, points her finger at George, and says that he is quite enough to protect her. George bows to her and reminds her that the saint constantly talks about how much George annoys her. He regrets that he will soon have to leave the girl. The saint, with her screams, wanted to make George stop following her, but did not ask for a change of guards. Maria wipes the girl's mouth from crumbs and convinces her that this is all only for her good, asks her to understand the servants of the goddess correctly. The saint thinks that she has not yet found forbidden magic, and additional security will only complicate and slow down the search. The girl cannot stop the tournament and therefore decides to find another way to stop the strengthening of the guards. She attracts the attention of George. The saint approaches George, takes him by the hem of his cloak, and asks the boy not to leave. She says that she likes him, and this is the reason for all the pranks. Georg is infuriated by this. He sheds a tear, and his sister Maria, who is watching this, only smiles sweetly at what is happening. George sits down on one knee in front of the girl. He thinks that he would never have guessed the thoughts of the saint, because she always cursed at him. And the saint, in a tone that does not imply a refusal, asks the boy to go to the tournament, which greatly surprises and shocks him. The girl looks at George with an arrogant and determined smile, and he only asks the saint what she means in response loudly and with despair in his voice. George III makes a solemn speech. He congratulates everyone who has passed the qualifying tournament. All of them deserve to become the bodyguards of the saint. George announces the start of the tournament, triumphantly raising his hands in the air. The crowd in front of him loudly cheers. In the back of the crowd stands George IV. He sighs doomedly. A drop of sweat runs down the boy's temple. He is clearly very tense. The boy remembers how he ended up here, recalls how the saint unexpectedly invited him to participate in this competition. The girl asked him to show his abilities for her, to destroy all rivals and win. Georg tried his best to refuse. But the girl carefully took him by the calloused hand and said that she had once chosen the boy as her guard. She states that her decision is influenced not only by the boy's strength, but also by how hard he tries when he is around her, and only she knows about it. The saint tries to encourage the boy as much as she can. She asks him to defeat so that everyone knows that only George and no one else can become her bodyguard. Georg looks at the girl in surprise but replies that he understands her order and will carry it out at any cost. The boy tightly clenches the fist of the hand that the saint touched and vows to become the best, so that no one would dare to allow a thought against the name of the saint. Behind Georg's back, two men are discussing. They believe that the kid passed the trials without a qualifying tournament because he is the son of paladins. Men believe that the boy has no chance of winning because only one person was able to pass the qualifying test the first time. One of the men tries to remember the man's name and remembers that the man's name is Chrome. Chrome himself unexpectedly appears behind them, which greatly frightens the men and asks them to let him pass in a stern voice. The saint sits under the supervision of the saints. She is combed, and the girl at this time reads the paper handed to her and is perplexed by what she has read. It turns out that this is the accounting of the money received from the tournament that Omar handed to the saint. Maria sees no point in showing the girl these papers. The saint looks thoughtfully at the paper, thinks over the meaning of what is written, squints and brings her finger to her lips. She is surprised to realize that almost 9,000 people have come to the tournament and is amazed aloud at this. Omar rejoices at the funds received for the restoration of the temple. Participation fees do not bring as much as the images of the saint. They fly away like pies. The girl asks how many copies have already been sold. Omar replies that there are about 10 copies for each person, and an order for 10,000 copies has recently arrived from the Northern Kingdom. The saint praises Omar and Mary, who came up with and organized all this. She admits to herself that she would never have thought of making such a living. The girl trusts Omar and asks him to make sure that the money does not go into the wrong hands. Omar looks at her with admiration. He is inspired. The saint fervently swears his fidelity. The girl looks at him with some incomprehension. An interesting idea suddenly comes to her mind. She thinks about going to see the competition. A fierce battle is going on. The sounds of battle are heard from everywhere. The men are fighting fiercely for the right to protect the saint. People fight in pairs in an open space. They are watched by the servants of the goddess, who finally determine the winners and losers in the battle. The saint has sneaked to the scene of the battle and is watching the tournament from behind wooden boxes. The girl notices with interest that there are also Runabelt's disasters among the participants. She believes that any of them is very likely to become her guard. She ponders who she would like to see as a guard, considers the candidacy of Jack and Beatrice, when suddenly what is happening on the battlefield distracts her. The organizers ask the participants to introduce themselves before the start of the fight. The saint peeks out to look at them and falls into a stupor from what she sees. The girl sees Lame from behind and is greatly surprised by his appearance, but she cannot be sure that it is him. However, looking at him, the girl remembers the young Chrome, who complains about the holy power of the inhabitants of the temple, which greatly annoys him. Liana approached the boy, gently stroked his head, and said that he should not compare himself with others. The girl tells Chrome that he, the other 6 mages, and her teacher are her family, and she loves them all equally. Liana promises the boy to become everything to him, and in response, he looks at her with huge eyes full of hope and completely trusts the girl. The girl remembers an interesting time spent together with the sins of Runabelt, Little Chrome, Cheerful Jack, and the rest. She remembers Chrome as a very small, smiling boy, remembers how he grew up in front of her eyes, how he smiled at her when he met, how much he believed in her. But the memories fade when Liana sees Chrome in front of her in the form of a stern man who has nothing to do with the young man she remembered him as. Chrome introduces himself, gives his full name, and says that he is 18 years old. The servants of the goddess and the participants in the competition are fascinated by him. Liana is amazed at how young Chrome looks. As she thought he was already over 25, the girl decides that this is not the Chrome she once knew. She tries to convince herself that this is another person, with a very similar appearance and name, and Liana notices that she does not feel magical energy from him. If the man still turns out to be the Chrome she knew, then he will definitely win this tournament. The girl remembers how she taught Chrome to fight and hold a sword in his hands, how she gave him advice on attacking the enemy and taught him only to win. She falls into a stupor when she sees this man get into the stance she once taught Chrome. The enemy runs furiously at Chrome and swings hard, intending to strike, while Chrome stands still and does not move. But in a second, he forcefully grips his sword, breaks away, his eyes fill with rage, and he knocks the sword out of the hand of the attacking man with a powerful blow. The opponent is amazed at Chrome's strength. His hand trembles from the blow, but through the pain, he notices that Chrome has thrown away his sword as well and decides to grab it to attack first. Chrome does not allow him to do this. He runs up to the man and raises his hand over him, intending to hit him with force. His face does not express emotion. The sin of anger grabs the man by the face and forcefully hits the ground with the back of his head. The man is so struck by this that he does not even have time to resist. Chrome sternly looks at the man who passed out, lying on the ground in a small hole formed by the blow, and loudly calls him a weakling. The saint from shock stops standing on her feet and falls to the ground, which creates a noise and attracts the attention of one of the servants. She notices the saint. This person was definitely Chrome because during the attack the saint felt all his magical power, and the Chrome only used the weapon as bait. People pay attention to the saint, begin to ask if there is a holy child in front of them. The servant of the goddess is panicking. Chrome also pays attention to the girl. He looks at her cruelly, with obvious hatred in his cold gaze. The saint looks into his empty eyes, tenses up, and suddenly realizes that Chrome intends to kill her. The two men discuss George IV again, but this time they note his success because Georg made it to the final of the tournament. They admit that they did not take the boy seriously because of his age. They thought that he would not get far, but George turned out to be more capable than they thought. However, Georg will not be able to win again because his next opponent will be Chrome, whom he was lucky not to face before. Chrome was already stronger than Georg, and now the boy was also injured, broke his arm. Now he has no chance at all. They reflect that the boy has all his skills only because he is from a paladin family, completely unaware of the boy's efforts in training. Men believe that the boy is actually weak, and he came to the tournament only to show everyone how hard he allegedly tries. They doubt the purity of his blood. The boy was allegedly simply crammed into the tournament, and this is completely unfair to the rest of the participants. They think that Georg has no talents, not even knowing how much effort he has put into improving his skills and what difficulties he has faced along the way. The saint appears in front of George, examines his injuries. The girl could not expect anything else. She looks sternly at the boy. George apologizes to the girl and immediately begins to cry. The saint tells him that it is too early to apologize, but mentally tries to come to terms with the fact that everything is over. Her life depends on George's battle with Chrome, and she certainly needs to encourage the boy with words, but it is too hard for him, and the saint does not know how best to start. George, with tears in his eyes, tells the saint that he really wanted to show her his abilities, to prove that he is better than the rest. The girl listens to him attentively. A similar situation was in her life. She plunges into memories of the past when she was still very young. She recalls apologizing to her teacher, saying that she really wanted to surprise him, but she made a mistake in magic. All the stones from the pot crumbled. The girl was shaking, expecting the teacher's disappointment and anger, because as a result of a mistake, she burned the books that the man had cherished so much. He was examining one of the burnt sheets. The man asks Liana if she knows the meaning of her name, and reminds her that her name means light, and she should never be upset about trifles. Memories of this incident are replaced by memories of the death of the teacher. Soldiers in armor executed him in front of everyone. It rained very hard that day. The girl fixes her gaze on the staff that the men took from her teacher. It looks broken. Liana is very frightened by this sight. The girl is about to cry. The dead teacher's blood is washed away by the rain. His skin color looks unnatural. People look at his death as a spectacle. The saint's thoughts return to a clear, good day. She remembers how the teacher was glad that she was not injured in the incident with the book. The saint clenches her fists and decides to go up to George to pat him on the head. The boy is very surprised by this and asks the girl what she is doing. She tells George that he did a great job, calls him her knight. The boy is still a child and he will have a lot more time to perfect himself. There is nothing wrong with mistakes. Everyone has failures and there are still a lot of them ahead. And today Georg did a good job, and that's enough. The boy begins to cry harder, which greatly frightens the saint. The girl decides that Georg has been accumulating everything in himself for a long time, and therefore now she is crying so loudly. George rushes to hug the saint, and she hugs him back. The atmosphere of the temple has a bad effect on her. She has become too soft-hearted. But then the saint wonders if she's acting this way because she was in the same situation as George a long time ago, but decides not to think about it. The saint asks George to keep secret from others that she cured him with divine power, asks him to fight so that he does not have to regret later. Georg nods to her enthusiastically. He understands everything. The girl is amazed at how quickly the annoyed boy came to his senses. George offers the girl to take her to the bedroom, but she refuses and is about to go alone. George nods in response and thanks the saint for her help. The saint turns to him with a broad smile and says that she will accept the words of gratitude only after the victory. The girl walks down an empty corridor and regrets that she refused George's help because she used the flow of divine power and it exhausted her greatly. She is tired. The saint rejoices when she notices her sister Maria ahead, who is looking for her and is about to run up to the woman to notify her of her presence. The girl opens her mouth to call her sister by name, but a man suddenly appears from behind and prevents her from doing so. He closes the holy mouth and drags her around the corner, deep into the corridor. The girl desperately resists. Maria does not hear anything and passes by. The man orders the girl to shut her mouth, and she tries to understand how he was able to sneak up on her so unnoticed, because she used to immediately notice the appearance of suicide bombers. But for a long time she decides not to think and bites the man's hand. The skin on his palm takes on an unhealthy shade and he cries out loudly in pain. The saint falls to the floor, the man swears, and the saint tries to understand why she does not feel magical energy from him because it has always been very bright. The girl decides to think about it later and uses divine power, from which, in her opinion, the man should quickly lose strength and give up. But, to the girl's surprise, nothing happens to the man. Although he should have already fallen from such a flow of power, he is not affected by the attack of the divine force. He comes closer and closer to the saint and raises his hand over her, intending to strike a blow. The saint does not have time to react to this action. The man hits her in the back and presses her to the floor, laughs at the girl's helplessness. She peers into his face through the pain. A priest stands before the saint. It dawns on her why her divine powers did not act on him. The priest begins to make strange speeches about the overthrow of the temple, says that the saint is to blame for all their failures, and draws a knife from his bosom. The girl realizes that she does not have the strength to resist, and the man is already raising a knife over her and intends to mercilessly kill the saint. He smiles evilly, confident in his victory, but another person suddenly appears behind him and swings his hand, then hitting the man on the head. The priest falls to the floor, disconnecting from the strong blow. The saint looks in horror at the man towering over her. It turns out to be Chrome. The girl tries to understand his intentions because she believed that he was going to kill her, and now he heroically saved her and sowed doubt in her. Chrome addresses her by her new name, which surprises the girl. She tries to control herself so as not to give herself away. Chrome kneels down in front of her and asks how she became like this. While calling her by her real name, Liana, the girl plunges into memories. Liana plays chess with Chrome and tells a story from her life while claiming that she does not believe in love. The girl claims that love is just a lie because even those who swore love to her never recognized her after her rebirth. She looks up at Chrome and sees that he is looking at her sullenly with his head down. The girl asks, what does not suit him? Chrome replies that he can't have fun hearing such a story. Liana looks down at the table and thinks about his words. Chrome claims that under no circumstances would he have made such a mistake, Liana's eyes rounding in surprise. The girl thinks about the serious face with which Chrome says all this. It unsettles her. She does not know what to answer him. Chrome asks Liana why she looks like this, and the girl is perplexed because no one has been able to recognize her yet, neither Jack nor the strongest magicians. She makes a questioning sound. Chrome leans over her and silently, sternly looks into the girl's face. He leans even closer and asks if Liana really doesn't remember anything. The girl tries not to show her embarrassment so as not to give herself away. She understands that if Chrome understands who she is, she will take her with her, and in the worst case, she will also unleash a war, and she will never be able to get forbidden magic again. She tries to pretend to be an ordinary child, squeezes tears out of herself, and says that she was very scared and almost cried. She pretends that she does not know anything. Chrome's face grows cold. The girl calls him a knight and thanks him for saving him, while noting the severity of his face and the blood-curdling atmosphere around him. Maria notices these two, calls the saint by name, loudly asks what is happening here. The girl rejoices at her appearance and jumps to her feet. Maria examines her face and notes that the saint is badly injured, asks if anything dangerous has happened to her. The girl replies that she was saved. Chrome rises to his feet and notifies Maria of the attempted murder of the saint, offers to take the suicide bomber for interrogation and through torture to find his leader. Maria sincerely thanks him for saving the saint. The girl looks at him with apprehension, but Chrome says nothing more. He silently and with some regret looks at the girl, politely asks for forgiveness, turns around and leaves. Bachman is very frightened by the news of the attempt on the life of the saint. He opens his eyes wide in a panic and talks, periodically breaking into a scream. Maria discusses with him the possibility of postponing the final of the tournament. Because the leader has not yet been found, and this can be dangerous, Bachman agrees with her. The saint calls them by name. Maria and Bachman turn sharply to her, look at the girl with interest, and prepare to listen to her words. The girl stands at the window. She says that everything is fine with her and asks to hold the final at the scheduled time. Bachman tries to dissuade her, but the saint interrupts him and tells him that she needs to be loudly announced at the tournament, as many people look down on her. The girl thinks that she, of course, is not happy about being reborn in the body of a saint, but she still has no desire to die at the hands of others. Bachman puts his hand to his heart, kneels in front of the girl and bows his head. He swears to the saint that he will always protect her. The Holy Father turns to the servants of the goddess and orders them to strengthen the guards, and in case of detection of suspicious persons, immediately stop the tournament. He asks them not to forget that the saint is now more important than anything else. The girl looks at them sternly, and all the acolytes answer in unison that they understand the order. The saint wonders again how Chrome was able to recognize her, since everyone else now has no doubt that she is a saint. She thinks about it while she is on a brightly lit balcony, from where she looks at the battlefield with a serious look. A huge empty space opens up in front of her, on which only the figures of Chrome and George stand. The pose of the saint betrays her tension. She could not decide what exactly Chrome was up to, but she clearly decided to do her job at any cost. The saint who follows the battle notes that George's body is covered in scars, which suggests that he tried hard to get this far. She says that everyone who is here now supports the participants in the fight, and their qualifications will be confirmed regardless of the outcome of the fight. She raises her hand in a calling gesture and gives the participants a blessing for a successful fight. The last round of the tournament, Georg IV against Chrome, begins. A fierce battle between Georg and Chrome has begun. Neither of them is going to give in. Both are attacking each other with terrible force. Chrome, with a face completely indifferent to what is happening, notes how much he is disgusted by the divine power. Georg frowns heavily, looking into his eyes, sweat running down his face. The boy is very tired, but he decides for himself that he will not give up for anything. Bachman asks the saint who, in her opinion, deserves to win, but the saint would gladly give the victory to both at once. The saint notes the difference in the worldview of the participants because Georg achieved his mastery with the help of hard training, and Chrome has always had outstanding talent. Thinking about this, the girl plunges into the memories of how little Chrome showed her a stone bird created by him with the help of magic. Liana could not take her eyes off him. His talent greatly impressed her because she herself did not manage to create this bird the first time. Chrome was genuinely happy that he had managed to do everything the first time, saying that everything worked out only thanks to Liana, and he really wanted to hear her praise. But the girl was unable to answer, her emotions mixed envy of his talent and joy for success. In the end, she controlled herself and dryly praised him. The saint, thinking, looks into the void, but her eyes are directed towards the battlefield, thus attracting Chrome's attention. The man turns to her and wonders what the saint's thoughts might be doing right now. But Chrome is distracted in vain, because his opponent has well-developed melee skills and, noticing Chrome's hitch, Georg quickly struck with his sword. But still, Chrome's skills are enough to deflect the boy's next blow. He forcefully strikes his sword with his own, but Georg manages to keep the weapon in his hands. Despite this, George IV managed to wound Chrome with the very first blow to the cheek, the sharp blade leaving a neat scratch on his face. Georg decides that he has found the man's weak point and is going to wait a little, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. However, Chrome begins to get annoyed by what is happening. He begins to press the sword. George's legs give way. It becomes more and more difficult for him to keep himself in place. Chrome says that his patience is already running out and he is not obliged to participate in this fight with weapons. He is going to just crush George, end everything with one blow. But he is distracted from his plans by the heart-rending screams of the servants of the goddess and Bachman, who shout the name of the saint. Chrome turns his head in their direction. He sees the saint's small body falling from the high balcony at high speed, but no one even tries to catch her. 5 minutes before the incident, one of the servants of the goddess ran onto the balcony at great speed. She strained the guards with her running. However, she was still allowed to see Bachman, who was also stressed by the unexpected appearance of the girl, forced him to be distracted from the tournament. The girl, out of breath, says that during the repair work in the temple, something collapsed and many people were under the rubble, and the priests could not help them. Bachman frowns. He is frightened by this event. He decides to go to the scene on his own and help the victims. He was going to warn the saint about his decision. He wanted someone to stay with the girl to avoid an accident, but the saint did not pay any attention to him. The girl watched the events on the field with interest, as if she had completely fallen out of reality. Maria smiles, noticing this. She finds it cute that the saint is so focused on the competition that she can't even hear the conversations behind her. The saint reflects on the fact that despite the obvious superiority of Chrome over George, the latter is trying his best not to yield to him while making progress. She thinks about what will happen to Chrome if Georg wins, and at that moment a woman who has just run into the balcony approaches her from behind. Mary tries to stop the woman by shouting, which attracts the attention of the saint, but it is too late. The servant has come close enough. The woman says that the death of the saint will lead to the fall of Bachman. The people behind her scream in horror and cannot move. The saint stands in front of her in mute horror. The servant pushes the girl with force and she flies out of the balcony with her back to the shouts of the crowd, Bachman, the frightened Maria, and the guards. The time of the fall is very short, but thoughts of death manage to visit her. The girl decides that despite all the difficulties, this life was not so bad. She does not have time to think well about the fact that she has not yet had time to find forbidden magic and meet her henchmen because someone's hands pick her up near the ground. The girl does not understand why she did not feel pain when falling. She hears the sighs of people in the stands and carefully opens her eyes to their voices. The saint realizes that she has landed on something soft. It dawns on her that it is the body of Chrome, who is lying unconscious under her right now. The girl is horrified to realize that, despite his magical powers, his body is no different from an ordinary human body. She understands that Chrome must have been severely injured when he tried to catch her. He is lying unconscious. The girl is trying with all her might to wake him up. She shouts his name, shakes the man by the shoulders, but he does not respond. The saint is very frightened. She freezes over him in fear and cannot move. A frightened judge approaches them from behind with a flag in his hands. He examines Chrome, but says nothing about his condition. Instead, the man declares Georg the winner of the tournament because during the inspection he notices that Chrome has gone out of the competition field and disqualifies him. The servants of the goddess feel Chrome's limbs with shaking hands and determine that both of his arms are broken and call a healer to the battlefield. The saint stands a little to the side and hears how in the stands they began to discuss George's unjust victory at the top of their voices. She turns to the speakers and can clearly hear their condemning conversations in which they call Georg a weak child and call the tournament just a circus. The girl realizes that these conversations will not have the best effect on Georg. She turns to him to assess the boy's condition. George is trembling all over, his body is tense. He hears the indignation of people who call him unworthy of the title of knight and fights the desire to cry right on the field. The girl is infuriated by the behavior of people and rushes to George, intending to help him, leaving behind her the bewildered servant of the goddess. Georg stands alone in the middle of the field, under a pile of disgruntled glances, and thinks that the people in the stands are right. He did not want to win in this way. It didn't matter to the boy whether he won or lost. He wanted to fight honestly with swords, to show his abilities properly, and now everyone probably decided that he was weak. Georg himself begins to be convinced that there is not a drop of pride in him, but he is distracted from this thought by a girl who comes up from behind. The saint cautiously approached George and took him by the hand, in which he held a sword, which caused the boy great surprise. In her mind, the girl honestly admitted to herself that she did not go to bring it to this, but now that the competition was over, she could not leave everything as it was. With a sharp movement, she removes jewelry from her hair, lets her hair down, and at the same time releases a stream of divine power to attract people's attention. She begins her speech, swears by the name of the goddess, says that she watched the fights, saw the honest desire and dedication of the participants. People calmly listen to her. The saint says that in honor of the courage of George IV and Chrome, she wants to appoint both of them as personal knights. George tries to contradict her, but the saint quickly thwarts his attempts, saying that he has no right to challenge her decision, and she does not want to hear anything about the fact that George is not worthy of the title of knight. The girl praises George for his successes, and the boy begins to cry quietly, not letting go of the saint's hand from his hand. The girl smiles at him. But unexpectedly, she hears rustles behind her and turns around, watching the unpleasant scene of how the injured Chrome is put on a stretcher and carried away to the hospital. Chrome remembers how Liana showed him magic, urged him to look at it carefully without taking his eyes off. The girl tried to give Chrome advice on witchcraft, but it turned out to be extremely inaccurate. The boy did not understand any of her explanations, but did not say it aloud. Liana abruptly rose from her seat, handed Chrome a bag of food, and said that it was time for her to go, because the teacher was probably waiting for her. The boy looks at the package in surprise. Liana waves goodbye to him, promises that she will bring more food later, and asks the boy to share it with his friends. Chrome comes to his senses and calls out to the departing girl to give his name and ask what her name is. He is very embarrassed. Liana flinches at his scream but turns to the boy and introduces herself, immediately indicating not only her full name, but also its meaning. The girl communicates with a poor old man to whom she has just given a bag of food, says that today she brought a little more and asks him to share it with those who are suffering. The old man sincerely thanks the girl and politely asks her to convey the gratitude of the people to Mr. Runabelt. Chrome stands around the corner and examines the girl with interest. It seems to him that he is not visible, and he allows himself to lean out a little harder. Suddenly, Liana appears behind him, almost glowing from the flow of magic, and loudly asks Chrome why he is hiding here. The boy is frightened. But Liana does not pay attention to his fright, creates a bag of food with the help of magic, and says that she has been looking for the boy for a very long time and is glad to finally find him. The girl hands him a bag of food and says that if this is not enough, the boy can come to her or the teacher and ask for more. Chrome asks if the teacher and Liana will have enough food if they continue to share with everyone, and if they will be in trouble if the Emperor finds them and tries to harm them. Liana abruptly rose from her knees and shouted in resentment that nothing like this could happen, and the Emperor only knew how to look down on everyone. Liana puts her hand to her heart and assures the boy that the teacher will be able to protect her no matter what happens. And then she smiles radiantly and no longer says so seriously that she herself is also quite strong and will be able to stand up for herself. Chrome, looking at her confident face and wide smile, decided that it would be great if he could somehow make the girl happy. Liana stands on an empty battlefield, pondering the meaning of mortal life, peering into the dust rising from the empty, rotten earth. She decides that the beauty of the world and human happiness have no meaning because a person is mortal, and after his death all problems lose their meaning. Tears flow down the girl's cheeks. She turns to Chrome, who is standing behind her, and says that she misses her teacher terribly. Chrome remarks that after Runabelt's death, he has never seen that beautiful, bright, and kind smile on Liana's face. For himself, he decided that Liana would be able to smile again as brightly as in childhood only if she achieved her goal, so Chrome decided to stay with her. After her death, Chrome simply decided to wait for the girl's rebirth, killing everyone who stood in her way. Shortly before her death, Liana told Chrome that she would be reborn in a new body at best the day after her death, and at worst 3 years later. Therefore, Chrome decided that he would not have to wait so long. He looked forward to their meeting, bringing new bouquets to Liana's body every day. When the news of the saint reached him, he decided to kill the girl. Because he considered her a hindrance to Liana, Chrome was going to kill her with his bare hands so that the saints would notice his magic. However, just as Chrome was planning to kill the girl, she ran past him with Georg, who was urging her to rehearse the speech. Chrome noticed how the saint responded to George, and how quickly she began to run away from him at the mention of rehearsals. Memories of how much Liana hated cramming, how she avoided it with all her might, immediately surfaced in his mind. At a glance, Chrome realized that the saint was Liana. He decided that the reason for this was the heightened feelings from the closure of magic. He noticed almost immediately that the saint's habits and manners were almost the same as Liana's, and George managed to scold and lead the girl away while Chrome's thought about it. But with this conclusion, Chrome asks another question. He tries to understand why Liana didn't return to Runabelt with Jack, and decides that she forgot everything. Then he came up with an even more horrifying version. He decided that he didn't mean anything to Liana at all. Chrome was angry. He clenched his fists angrily. The man decides that he must take the girl to Runabelt at all costs. He stood on the balcony in front of her room and waited for the moment to get inside. He heard the saint inside the room begin to cry, and he looked inside. He heard the girl crying because of the nightmare, and Mary approached to calm her. Chrome looked at the girl sadly and looked away. He decided that if Liana lived happily in this place, then he should leave her and leave quietly. Mary called the girl to her to hug her tightly. The saint gladly approached her and fell into her arms, clinging to the woman. After the hug, tears did not stop flowing from the girl's eyes, but a satisfied smile appeared on her face, and she began to fall asleep. Chrome silently left the balcony. He decided to pretend not to recognize her the next time they met. He was angry with Liana, but still ran in fear to save her from falling because he respected the girl. When the girl tried to bring him to his senses, the man vaguely asked her not to call him by name because they did not know each other. But the girl did not hear him. She came closer and closer, but instead of the little saint, Chrome saw Liana in her. The changes in the girl upset him greatly. Chrome woke up from his injury with the thought that he had to throw away his feelings because Liana was alive, but now she was no longer the person she was before. He carefully rises on the bed, sits up and looks around, realizes that he is in the hospital but is almost not surprised. Chroma is angry that he fell unconscious from a simple injury. He is about to immerse himself in thoughts on this topic, but he is distracted by the fact that something warm is touching his palms. He lowers his gaze and sees that the little saint is lying next to him, holding tightly to his finger and sleeping peacefully. Chrome looks at the girl in surprise, unable to move. He purses his lips from the surging emotions and is about to do something. But a man unexpectedly enters the hospital, making Chrome shudder, but not let go of the saint's hand. In this man, Chrome recognizes Bachman, a man who once bore the title of Holy Shield, and the image of the young Bachman arises in Chrome's mind. But he quickly comes to his senses and realizes that Bachman has long since grown old and cannot be called the Holy Shield now. Now he is the Holy Father. Bachman asks Chrome about the condition of his hands, says that they were cured by the saint with the help of a blessing, and Chrome is amazed to draw attention to his healthy hands. The man looks bitterly at the sleeping saint, and Bachman decides to tell him about how the saint put his hair in order. Chrome interrupts him a little rudely and says that he has been disqualified and has no reason to stay here anymore. He stands up and lets go of the saint's hand. The man gets out of bed, puts on the things he took off before the tournament, says that he is going to leave, and proudly heads towards the exit past Bachman. The Holy Father, without turning around or betraying any emotion, clarifies whether the man's name is really Chrome. He states that Chrome is very similar to one of his acquaintances. Chrome immediately understands what he is talking about and tenses up a lot. His face is hidden in the shadows. Bachman says that a lot of time has passed and most likely he will not be able to remember much, but some moments, on the contrary, cannot be forgotten. Bachman remembered quite accurately that of all those he knew and with whom he had to fight, Chrome was the strongest and most dangerous. Bachman and Chrome stand with gloomy faces, immersed in memories of the past years and the terrible battles in which they had been involved. Bachman smiles and says that Chrome looks a lot like this man. However, he cannot be one because the Chrome he knew must now be many years old. Chrome looks at the smiling Bachman and remembers that despite his good appearance, the man always attacked opponents at their weak points, sparing no one. Chrome clenches his fists, remembering how Bachman forced Runabelt to retreat from the battlefield, but with a serious face, he tells him that he doesn't quite understand what he is talking about. Bachman says he doesn't care who Chrome is, because he has already defended the treasure of the temple twice, and the Holy Father will not be able to repay him even if he gives his life. Bachman bows to Chrome, asks him to stay in the church, as this is the wish of the saint herself. Chrome is amazed that this man, who was not inferior to anyone on the battlefield, so easily bows his head and asks for help for the sake of the saint. It dawns on the man that in this case he will not be able to easily take Liana away. He will always be watched. Chrome thinks about how much Bachman is humiliated for the sake of the saint, cannot express his devotion to her. Chrome decides to take extreme measures. He asks Bachman if he meant the sin of anger when he spoke of a certain hero and called him the strongest he knew. He recalls Bachman's title and his long-forgotten nickname, the Invincible Sword, and asks once more if Bachman was talking about the sin of wrath of the 7 scourges of Runabelt. He tilts his head, his face hidden in the shadows, and he asks, grinning maliciously, if Bachman meant that Cromer is very much like the sin of anger. The Holy Father straightens up and looks sternly at the man. He thinks about something and is about to give Lame an answer. But he is interrupted by the unexpectedly awakened saint, who immediately attracts attention to herself and begins to complain about the noise raised. Bachman asks the girl if she is awake. The saint replies with an indistinct sound, rubs her eyes, and yawns sleepily. The girl tells the Holy Father that everything is dry in her mouth, and the man, hearing this, immediately offers to go to the kitchen and bring something to drink. Chrome follows Bachman's back and decides that their conversation has clearly gone a little wrong, and now he must be in a very dubious position. He decides to go to the saint's bed and ask if the girl slept well, and in response to this, she sleepily peers into his face and cannot understand who he is. She wakes up abruptly when she remembers how yesterday she cured Chrome, and then fell asleep next to him. The girl looks at Chrome with horror in her eyes. She is very uncomfortable talking about what happened at the tournament, but the saint seems to say something. She tries to start a conversation. Chrome sighs contemptuously and says that the girl did not live up to his expectations. He believed that she was the incarnation of the goddess, but in fact the girl is just an ordinary child. The saint is indignant, and Chrome continues to say that she is weak, that he wasted his time on her. This is his plan to bring the saint to light. Chrome clears his throat. In fact, there is nothing to thank him for. He regrets that he did not immediately understand that the girl is a very weak child and overestimated her. The saint is shaking with anger. She breaks down and shouts that she knows so much, that her knowledge far exceeds that of her teacher. Chrome gets down on one knee in front of her and smiles. The girl realizes that she has been caught and calms down a little. Chrome confirms that he recognizes her. He calls the girl by her real name, and Liana begins to get angry again, frowning and clenching her little fists. The girl asks Chrome at what point he recognized her. The man understood everything at once, because the girl has not changed at all and her murderous character has not changed either. Liana breaks down again and shouts that she is still holding herself together. Chrome teases the girl, showing her his tongue. But he quickly changes his mood, puts his hand to his heart. Chrome believed in her rebirth because in that life the girl promised to return to him. Chrome baffles the girl with the question of why she did not return to Runabelt. Liana silently considers the answer. She has to confess to her unsuccessful search for forbidden magic, left somewhere here by her teacher. Magic is not found because Bachman refuses to tell the girl about her, saying that she is still too young for this. Liana will definitely be able to find forbidden magic, but only after she comes of age, when all the secrets of the temple will be revealed to the girl. Chrome looks at her thoughtfully. Liana is forced to survive in this small, uncomfortable body and live in ignorance. Even after her rebirth, she remained loyal to her teacher and still wants to find forbidden magic. The girl seems to be connected to her. If this is what the saint is driven by, then all Chrome can do is follow the girl. He sits down on his knee in front of her, kisses her little hand, and vows to be with her always, to the very end. A man agrees with everything that the girl wants. He wants only happiness for her and promises to support her in everything. The girl looks back at him in amazement, pondering the man's words and her current situation. Chrome is not going to return to Runabelt. Liana is annoyed by this, and she decides to ask the man about it. He is amazed at her question. He recalls how the saint asked him to stay in the temple, begged him not to leave her, and told the altar boys how much he was dear to her. At that moment, Bachman came into the room. The saint, who could not remember when she had made such speeches, decided that he had slandered her. The girl rushed at him with fury, intending to teach the impudent old man a lesson and show who was in charge here. The man who was so dear to Chrome is now alive and breathing in this world. He will no longer have to wait for the return of the girl. These thoughts, supported by the saint's angry cries, make Chrome happy, and he begins to smile brightly, chuckling. The official meeting of the Knights of the Saint takes place in one of the spacious halls of the temple. Chrome stands in his new uniform and looks down with interest at little George. The boy looks at the Chrome in reverse. From the bottom up, he is a little worried. It can be seen from his tense face. The knights officially greet each other. After bowing, Georg approached Chrome and very quietly asked permission to ask the man a question that interested him. Chrome nodded silently, and Georg asked how old he really was. The man was taken aback. He wanted to lie, but this time he decided to tell his age honestly, and Georg was not ready to hear such a large number. Chrome turned out to be 68 years old. George III enters the room. He admires Chrome's confidence and strength. He asks the man to protect the saint from anyone who will threaten her. In Georg's opinion, the saint is most likely to be attacked by messengers from Runabelt, and he recalls Jack as a confirmation of this idea. But Chrome does not agree with him. Perhaps the work is being done from within, and someone from the temple has his eye on the saint. George is amazed by this statement, but his father reassures him, because this version of events is also possible because not everyone likes the saint. During the discussion of the plan of action, a saint enters the room, recalling the conversations of the attackers and assuming that they want to take the position of Holy Father. The girl falls silent and peers into Chrome's face, assessing his clothes with her eyes. The man constantly looks back at her. Lame is dressed in his new outfit, and the saint notes it. Chrome thanks her for the compliment. They quickly move from the exchange of pleasantries to the essence of the meeting. A discussion of the pressing issue of attacks on the saint begins. George watches the conversation with jealousy. The only one who will benefit from Bahman's resignation from the post of Holy Father is Brother Omar, because in the hierarchy he stands right after Bahman. The saint begins to shiver from cold and fear, but tries not to show it, urges everyone to be careful and not to catch Omar's eye. Georg notices a tremor in the girl's body and removes his cloak to cover her, but he does so too late. Chrome gets ahead of him and throws his huge cloak over the saint's shoulders. The saint is still a little chilly, but she sincerely thanks Chrome for his care. Watching this, Georg is completely discouraged. Chrome, who has no intention of doing so, practically pushes the boy away from the saint. Chrome knows the saint too well. Georg is alarmed by this because he has known the saint for 5 years, but cannot react so quickly to her wishes. And Chrome, who has not been with the girl for 5 weeks, immediately understands her without a word. In addition, he is very strong and smart. It is as if there is no longer a place next to the saint. He is very upset when he thinks about it. The boy feels unwell, and he notifies the saint. The girl anxiously asks where and what hurts the boy, intending to heal him, but the emotional pain cannot be cured by the power of the goddess. Georg understands this and heroically runs out of the room so as not to embarrass himself in front of the girl. He intends to take a little break. The boy sincerely regrets his act because the saint is worried about him, and he brazenly lies to her about his condition because of some worries. George III runs out after his son. The saint and Chrome condemn such an obvious pretense of the younger George. They move to the table. Chrome feeds the girl a cake. They discuss George's act, and Chrome unwittingly begins to compare him to Beatrice. The saint does not like this comparison, but she agrees with his truthfulness, Beatrice constantly whining when Leanna devoted less time to her than to Chroma. George is most likely acting strangely for the same reason as Beatrice. Chrome says it out loud. The saint does not react to his words. Georg Chrome's problems do not concern him, so he does not develop this topic and continues to silently feed the saint. They continue to discuss the theory about Omar, but the man is now busy with accounting. He is very busy. This is the main argument in his direction. Chrome and the saint return to where they started. They have no suspects again. The girl plunges into thought. The girl decides to think like a criminal, asks Chrome to think over a plan of action, while imagining herself in the place of the criminal. The man recalls all the events that happened. Now it is impossible to get close to the saint due to the strengthening of security after 2 unsuccessful attacks. Chrome makes an allegory of this situation, presenting the saint as an inviolable tree that he needs to remove. He tries to figure out how to do it and notices flowers under his feet from the clearing where this untouchable tree grows. This leads him to think that next time the attack will not be on the saint herself, but on her entourage and those whom she cherishes. This idea interested the girl. She tensed up and began to sort out the people she cherished in order to single out the most defenseless among them. Maria is always surrounded by other people. It is almost impossible to attack her unnoticed. You can attack Crom or Bachman as a knight, a close friend of the saint and the Holy Father, the head of the temple. But in this case, on the contrary, a miracle will happen if the attackers remain alive after meeting with such strong men. The people around the saint can become easy prey. It is easy to attack any of them because no one expects an attack from behind. The crying George IV is attacked at the same moment that the saint thinks about his safety. The boy is unable to resist the attackers. A bright flashlight appears in the face of the frightened Georg. The boy shouts at the attackers, urging them to stop. He falls silent when the beam of the lantern is directed directly at his eyes. Georg squints at the light, his face distorted. As his sight returns, he looks around in bewilderment at the dark room into which he was dragged and the people who did it. People introduce themselves to him. They are all church servants, and Georg even knows many of them personally. Others he just remembers by sight. He is horrified to recognize in each of them not just people, but priests who are on the service of Mr. Omar. The men begin to laugh vilely, confess their loyalty to Mr. Omar, and smile disgustingly in the boy's face. George accuses the men of attempted murder, and they do not hide their guilt. The men consider murder to be the best method in the struggle to save the temple. They are going to save the temple from a witch who hides behind the mask of the saint. But George knows only one witch, Liana, and she has been dead for a long time. The boy considers this statement in the direction of the saint to be unjustified slander. Men mock his naivety. One of them asks if George really considers the girl a saint, if he noticed anything strange in her behavior. Georg recalls all the oddities of the girl. In his opinion, she behaves as if she has already lived more than one life. This leads Georg to strange thoughts. He is approaching the truth in his reflections. A man in a hoodie comes up to him and encourages him to think in this direction. And then he begins to convince the boy that the appearance of the saint is just a ridiculous plan by Bachman in order to take the place of the head. He began to talk about Bachman too harshly. This completely confused Georg. The claims of the men of Go were striking. Mr. Bachman, as it turned out, has nothing to do with the conspiracy. He is only in charge of money and is not going to change the hierarchy of the temple in his favor. The men tell the boy too much, trying to lure him to their side. They want him to lend them a helping hand in overthrowing the Holy Father. They begin to laugh uncontrollably again, ask the boy to confirm aloud that he has joined their ranks, but hear only silence from him. The boy screams. He defends Omar and Bahman, people who give themselves completely to work in the temple despite all their shortcomings. The boy will not allow them to be insulted. He condemns men for their attempts at manipulation. For slandering the saint, he will not tolerate insults to the girl. And the men do not tolerate his screams. One of them grabs the boy by the collar and hits his back against the wall. Georg cannot resist him. The killers regret that they could not find a common language with Georg. He simply does not listen to them, and they are not going to listen to him. The only solution to this misunderstanding is seen by men in the murder of the boy. One of the killers reaches for the knife. Georg prepares to strike. Suddenly, behind the backs of the men, something loudly breaks and shatters into pieces. Bright sunlight penetrates into the room. In the opening of the broken wall, the figure of Chrome appears. He despises the men gathered in the room because they are so stupid that they could not even cover their tracks. A frightened Omar appears after him. He is unhappy that the men forged his accounting and caused him a lot of problems. Chrome abruptly approaches Georg and literally throws a dangerous man with a knife in his hands away from him with one hand. He unties Georg and tells how he found him with the help of traces of kidnapping, which were left by inept killers. The search was led by the saint herself. She was very worried about George. With these words, Chrome handed the boy his small sword. He intended to deal with the criminals on his own, sent Georg to rest, but the boy really wants to teach the men a lesson himself. He cannot stand aside after all the insults he has heard from the men addressed to the saint. Chrome and Georg prepare to attack. The boy's eyes are full of determination. He intends to protect the honorable name of the saint with all his might, and the battle begins. Omar, who is watching him, cannot move. He wants to immortalize this spectacle in his memoirs. Thanks to two outstanding knights, the perpetrators of all the attempts were found. George IV was saved, and the incident was settled. The day after the incident, Georg asked Chrome to go with him to the training field to practice his fighting technique. Chrome's victory once again, but there is not a drop of grief on Georg's face. He is almost glowing with joy. The boy admires Chroma's strength, rejoices that he did not meet a man as an enemy, and Chroma is surprised by his high spirits. Chrome asks Georg the reason for their competition. The boy, embarrassed, confesses his envy of Chrome's swordsmanship skills and strength. The boy wanted to fight Chrome, without any regrets, in order to learn from him the necessary skills to protect the saint. Chrome is amazed at his honesty and does not even try to hide it. He is indescribably pleased with the boy's desires. The saint knows how hard George tries and needs him very much, so Chrome extends her hand to George and asks him to follow him. The girl should not be left alone for a long time, and since she liked George's company so much, he should be with her as long as possible. George and Chroma's desires to protect the saint converge. They, like loyal knights, follow her to protect her from all dangers. The wonderful news about the new Knights Bodyguards of the Saint spreads throughout the continent. Peaceful times are coming to the city. At the same time, this news reaches Runnabelt, to the enraged Beatrice, who without any hesitation declares Chrome a traitor. She vows to deal with all of Asperia, the Chrome, and the Saint, and the onset of peacetime is called into question. Liana and Chrome have a snack in a small eatery that seems to be over 50 years old, but Liana is sure that it will not sway for another 100 years. The girl really wants to meet Chrome in this eatery in her next life. These words of hers are forever imprinted in Chrome's memories. The already grown-up man is happy to dine in this eatery, snacking on the same delicacies that Liana treated him to. The noisy room is full of people. Chrome does not stand out among them. The cook of the eatery turns to him and thanks him for another visit. The cook knows who Chrome really is. He helped him to participate in competitions without suspicion. The cook does this as a token of gratitude for the calamity mages and witches who liberated the people from the terrible emperor. Chrome turns gloomy when he thinks about it. He really wants the words of the cook to be heard by the deceased Liana, because she was very worried about those whom she could not save. He is saved from gloomy thoughts by the same cook who brings Chrome a free treat as a tribute to him. His son begins to be indignant because this treat is quite expensive. The cook yells at him. Chrome is too important to him, and the cook is not going to save on him. Chrome examines the treat brought to him. This fruit was not so expensive before and was not considered something luxurious, but now this fruit, which contains neither taste nor useful trace elements, is served only to special guests. The saint is in a hurry. She quickly runs along the corridor to the room, where she is met by the servants of the goddess and offered to sit down in any convenient place. The girl is wished bon appetit and praised for her good work in the classroom and success in learning. The saint sits down on a chair and cheerfully thanks everyone, promises to eat with pleasure, and smiles sweetly at everyone present. The servants note that the girl is becoming cuter every year. Her smile makes each of them feel healthy. But not only the saint is getting prettier every year, a breathless George flies into the room, urging the saint to wait for him. George IV also begins to blossom. He is clearly growing up, and his appearance and character are gradually changing. He approaches the saint and swears, because the girl left alone, although she already has only one guard today, the saint brazenly argues with him. The altar boys discuss the boy's beauty. They are looking forward to his coming of age. George seems to them the most beautiful in the temple. But one of the acolytes does not agree with them. He considers Chroma the most beautiful in the temple and gives very weighty arguments. The man tells how he recently brought breakfast to Chrome's room, and he did not answer for a long time and did not open the door. And when the door finally opened, Chrome appeared before him in only a towel wrapped around his waist, which deeply shocked the servant. Several years have passed since this incident, and the image of a half-naked Chrome is still in front of his eyes. At the same time, the saint is surprised to notice a decrease in the amount of food on the table. George says that he does not see anything strange. The girl begins to be more indignant when she sees the absence of a melon on the table. Georg does not think its absence is a tragedy, because there is nothing useful in this fruit. The enraged saint begins to beat George. She is angered by the boy's behavior and orders him to bring a melon. George gives up, asks the saint to stop. The melon has risen too much lately, he just can't bring it. The holy rise in the price of the fruit seems to be a stupid excuse. Because the temple is not so poor, the altar boys can probably afford to buy a melon. The girl begins to understand everything. Something happened in the temple, and this is why there are problems with money. She asks George about it, and the boy says that nothing special has happened, and the saint should not worry too much. The saint's face changes from his words. She falls silent and purses her lips. She has listened to such speeches many times, in all her reincarnations. In each of them, she died before she could become an adult, and because of this, the girl's whole life consisted of childhood. The girl never had a chance to gain experience. The girl always decided everything for her. It seemed to Liana that the life of the saint would be different, but in the end it was no different from the previous ones. Georg looks intensely at the girl's expression and, unable to stand it, begins to tell about what happened in the temple. In fact, what happened is not the fault of the temple. There is another problem. Chrome reaches into the inner pocket of his jacket. He takes out a newspaper from it and hands it to the saint. After reading it, the girl should understand what is going on. After reading what is written, the saint's face becomes distorted. Her eyes widen. She looks at the newspaper with disgust and bewilderment. At the same time, in Runabelta, Jack indignantly throws a stack of the same newspapers on Beatrice's desk. He is interested in the origin of many of the articles in the pages of this newspaper, of which Beatrice is probably the author. The girl looks sternly at the magician, does not hide her authorship at all, but if, on the contrary, she is proud of him. Beatrice is still very young, standing in front of her relatives. All her relatives praise her, call her the best child in the world. The girl was born in a family of aristocrats, where everyone groomed and cherished her. She was talented in everything from childhood. It was a matter of course for her to be the best, but she lived like a frog in a well, and when she encountered a man stronger than her, she could not resist him. This fateful meeting shattered all her convictions of her invincibility. A strong man even refused to fight her, which Beatrice took as an insult. Liana's power looming over Beatrice was 10 times greater than that of her previous opponents. Beatrice sat helplessly on her knees in front of the girl, unable to utter a word of anger, eating her from within. There was a man many times stronger than her. Beatrice could not leave it like this. Liana paid attention to the girl. The articles described above describe the saint's attitude to the melon. It is said that the girl launders money on it. Beatrice denies her involvement in this. Jack does not believe her, because he knows how hard Beatrice collects melon all over the continent in order to increase its price several times. Beatrice calmly listens to his arguments, sipping red wine from a tall glass. Jack tries to get her attention. And it turns out that when he mentions Chrome in his speeches, who sent a letter asking him not to touch the saint, the glass cracks in Beatrice's hand from the force of the squeeze. She is furious and orders Jack to shut up and never mention Chrome, the name of this traitor hurting the girl's ears. Jack also likes the Saint, but at least he stayed in Runabout, so Beatrice treats him more gently. The girl demonstrates the ring and reminds the man who has power. Wine mixed with blood flows down her hand. Now Beatrice is the mistress of Runabout, and Jack must follow her rules and have no claims against her. And if he does have them, then Beatrice agrees to talk to him only after he has sorted out a bunch of documents. The girl is angrily looming over Jack, who does not want to do this job. He is not used to working with his head because he is used to dealing with everything with the help of his beauty. Beatrice is nervous and begins to bite her fingernails, while Jack, who acts as Chrome, watches her. The man decides not to touch the already angry Beatrice for the time being and get down to business, because there are really a lot of papers. He has no doubts about Chrome's skills, knows that he will definitely be able to protect the Saint, but he is worried about the changes in his queen's character. Everything that is written in newspaper articles is a scam, but Beatrice's plan works. The melon has really risen in price. They began to steal it even from the walls of the temple. There is no melon now, even in George's house, so the Saint will have to be content with other fruits until the situation changes. The girl, of course, is not satisfied with this, but she cannot do anything and begins to eat other, no less useful fruits. However, something suddenly dawns on the girl and she pounces on Georg's neck with a joyful face. She asks why little George knows so much about the news about the melon, about the temple's supplies, if he doesn't care about this fruit. The girl realizes the correctness of her train of thought when Georg begins to strain under her arms and tries to get the girl off him. He is going to buy melon so that the Saint will not be too upset about her absence. The Saint understands this and deliberately embarrasses George. The girl turns out to be right. Georg cannot prove the opposite and tries to leave, but he is also unable to take off the Saint. During her attack, the girl notices Chrome approaching and asks him to help her stop the fleeing George. But instead, Chrome removes the Saint from the boy. She is indignant because she just wanted to have fun with the boy. Chrome does not listen to her, and Georg runs away from them. The boy's face is red. He is very embarrassed. The Saint still intends to get to him. George is frightened by this, and he runs out the door, pretending to be sick again. The Saint is perplexed. She asks Chrome to let her go, but he does not move and only informs her that they need to talk. He addresses the girl by her real name. Liana is annoyed by this, and she tunes in to a serious conversation. Chrome and the Saint discuss false articles that are quickly spread among the people and are only the beginning of trouble. Accusations against the Holy Father and the Holy One are becoming more and more. If this continues, then donations to the temple will stop. Donations are the main income of the temple, and if people stop donating money to the temple at all, then it will go bankrupt. By the signature in the newspaper, the Saint recognizes the authorship of Beatrice. She praises her for her clever method of reprisal against the enemy. In her place, the previous Liana would have done the same, because it was she who taught Beatrice to cope with the enemy in all available ways. But now everything has changed a little. Now she personally knows all the inhabitants of the temple, worries about them, and will not allow them to be humiliated in such a way. The Saint's mood rises. She knows exactly how to deal with this problem and asks Chrome to gather people to go on the counteroffensive. The Saint dreams of her death. The girl coughs up blood. She dies of poisoning. The girl hears a voice mocking her. This is her death in one of her past lives, in which she was an artist and could claim to be the genius of the century. This life was poor, but Liana lived it happily. Because she had paintings and a beloved friend, she did not want more for happiness. But her beloved friend turned out to be terribly jealous. She killed Liana to take her place. At that moment, Liana could not understand her motives and was shocked by her best friend's actions. But this girl was merciless. She brutally killed Liana because she herself wanted to become a genius of the art of the century, and Liana was only a hindrance in her way. The Saint wakes up with tears of horror in her eyes, just at the moment when her memories are interrupted by the moment of death. Chrome, all this time, was next to the sleeping girl. He immediately realized that she was dreaming about her past life again. Whenever a girl dreams of her past lives, she sobs in her sleep, and then, when she wakes up, she begins to cry alone so as not to disturb anyone. Chrome brought warm milk for the tired Liana so that she could calm down faster and be able to fall asleep soundly. Tomorrow is an important day for the girl to fight back against Beatrice. Remembering this, she tenses up. The girl does not see any strangeness in Beatrice's behavior, because in the current situation, she could well think that Chrome and Liana abandoned her. Chrome still thinks she is wrong, and Liana, on the contrary, praises the girl for her ability to think strategically and an unusual approach to destroying the enemy. Remembering Beatrice, Liana draws parallels between her behavior and that of her former best friend. They turn out to be very similar. The memories of this depress the girl, because that friend killed her, and it is quite possible that Beatrice will do the same. In none of her lives has the girl died peacefully. She was always killed by someone. She is afraid that this time Beatrice will become her killer. Early in the morning, a group of reporters from different kingdoms arrive at the Temple of Asperia. They discuss the rumors that threaten the temple's bankruptcy. The saint is already spoken of badly everywhere, so reporters are very wary of entering the temple, expecting to see a small demon in front of them. But their eyes widen in amazement when the door opens in front of them and a bright light from the face of the Holy One falls on their faces. The saint seems to them to be the embodiment of the goddess of Saint Asperia. She sits peacefully on an armchair in the middle of the hall, thanking the reporters for the journey they have traveled. She seems to bewitch them with her sweet words. Men are trying with all their might not to succumb to her charms. But they do not succeed. Light breaks into their hearts. The beauty of the saint and her ability to spell her teeth help her achieve what she wants. But the action of divine forces also helps a lot. Everything goes as planned. The men are fascinated by the girl. The saint contacted the newspapers so that people would know about the untruthfulness of the articles. She is trying to change the point of view of reporters so that they publish good material about her. The girl begins to be asked questions about the articles about the melon. Bachman is going to answer for her, but the girl stops him. She wants to solve everything herself. The girl calls herself an ignorant child who still has a lot to learn, tries to win over reporters. Melon, in her memory, was always considered a useless fruit and was thrown from side to side like garbage, and she herself always loved this fruit. But since love for melon is considered a crime in society, the girl is ready to admit her guilt. Reporters are perplexed by her words. They wanted to know if the saint was really using melons as a way to make money, but they miscalculated and did not get an answer from her. George suddenly appeared. The attention of the reporters immediately switched to him. The boy reported to the saint about his return from the territorial patrol. The men began to discuss aloud his victory in the first and subsequent tournaments. The boy, in their opinion, deserves his position. They abruptly fall silent and hear the saint formally thanking the embarrassed George, who is kneeling in front of her. The girl begins to praise George's kindness, and he, in turn, gently begins to praise the saint in front of reporters, confessing his fidelity to her to the grave. The men cannot even imagine that this scene is played by the saint and George, especially for them. It is quite difficult for the boy. The saint enjoys this show and hopes that, upon her return, each of the reporters will write a rebuttal to previous articles. She hoped that the articles would restore her dignity in the eyes of society, but instead she received another false article about her affair with George. Everything only got worse. Now it will be almost impossible to convince people, and the temple will lose its income. The plans of the saint were ruined. The saint furiously tears apart the new issue of the newspaper and curses Beatrice, who must have had a hand in this. If the articles actually written by the reporters had been published, Beatrice's plan would have been frustrated. But the girl bought the newspapers and did not allow this to happen. In these articles, the saint looked very dignified. Reporters noted her incredible charisma, the strength of the girl's spirit, and her sincerity. For Jack, such a description of the stateliness and charisma of a person reminded Liana, who had always been distinguished by these qualities. Beatrice asks if Jack is really talking about the queen, and after receiving confirmation, she swoops down on him and scolds him for such a ridiculous comparison of his enemy with their queen. Jack becomes gloomy. He knows who the saint is, but he cannot tell the girl about it directly because he will never break the promise he made to Liana. He asks if Beatrice cares about his words, hoping for a positive answer, but does not receive it from the girl. Beatrice clenches her fists angrily. She is really annoyed by the resemblance between Liana and the saint, but she has already come up with an explanation for this and does not doubt it. According to the girl, the evil saint pulled Chrome to her side and learned information about Liana from him in order to compare with her. During Liana's absence, Beatrice must be the best. Thinking about it, she loses her temper again, and another brilliant plan is born in her head. Mary came to the saint's room to comb the girl before going to bed and noticed how heavily she sighed. The saint thinks about whether she is really a messenger, an incarnation of the goddess. Maybe everything that is happening is really a mistake and she is actually an ordinary child. Maria is surprised by her statement and asks the girl again in an attempt to make sure that what she heard is correct. The saint recalls the articles in which she is scolded and accused of lying, and because of these articles, the church also suffers. The girl is not called a real saint. Because of this, donations are reduced. If the girl had not been reborn in this body, nothing would have happened. Maria, having listened to the experiences of the saint, begins to laugh softly, which greatly outrages the girl. Mary recalls the saint about her night gatherings reading the newspaper. The girl tried to learn how to competently answer journalists to mean questions. Not only Mary knows about these efforts, but also all the other altar boys in the church. Maria urges the girl not to worry, because no matter what the rumors are, the altar boys of the temple value the saint very much and will always be on her side. The girl is very embarrassed by such speeches, blushes, and restrainedly thanks a completely calm woman. Maria continues to do her job. In none of her reincarnations did Liana receive parental love. No one ever cared for her, and only Maria and her teacher were able to give her this love. In her previous incarnation, Liana once tried so hard to learn magic and become strong as a teacher that she even fell ill. She really wanted to get his recognition and learn forbidden magic. Liana constantly asked how she could gather as much magical power as her teacher. The man stubbornly repeated to her every time that there were only 2 ways to get power. The girl remembered this very well. The first was to search for knowledge on her own and concentrate it in her body, and the teacher never told her about the second. And this time he didn't talk either. The girl should one day learn about this method on her own. The second way is most likely to transfer the magical powers of one person in the event of their death to another. Liana recalls taking the powers of a dead teacher, and then again draws a parallel between this situation and Beatrice, who wants to kill her or even killed her in a previous rebirth. From such a nightmarish thought, the saint abruptly wakes up in a cold sweat, her eyes open incredibly wide in horror. However, the reason for her abrupt and unpleasant awakening is not only an unpleasant dream. Her loud screams will be Omar. He tells the saint about an aristocrat who came in the morning and is going to make a huge donation. The girl's drowsiness immediately disappears. The saint doubts the sincerity of the aristocrat's desire, but her donation, according to Bachman, is intended to support the love of the saint, described in a recent article. The aristocrat wants to spend some time with the saint. Bahman and Omar ask her to smile at the girl in order to make a good impression and get more money. A saint who does not believe in love was made a donation in the name of love. And even after all those offensive articles, the girl finds a share of irony in this. She thinks about the dreams that have recently begun to visit her against the background of stress, and decides to deal with the problem of finances in order to stop worrying, at least because of it. The saint decided to meet with the aristocrat. Her family was well known even before the great empire fell. The girl suddenly hears an eerily familiar voice in front of her. The soul almost leaves her body. Everything begins to swim before the girl's eyes when this voice addresses her by a new name and thanks her for the opportunity to meet. In front of the girl stands Beatrice from the Graham family. She masterfully pretends to be an innocent person. It is impossible to see her nature through the girl's elegant dress. Beatrice looks up at the saint with anger and thanks her for the audience, pure rage gleaming in her eyes. The saint in front of her smiles nervously and cannot move. The absurdity of the situation both makes the girl laugh and frightens her at the same time. The dreams that had been bothering her for a long time turned out to be prophetic dreams. The Graham family ceased to exist during the fall of the empire and the outbreak of war. Omar is amazed at the appearance of a surviving girl from this family. The saint is not surprised at all because she knows about Beatrice's immortality and the way she was able to survive. Like Chrome, who came to the capital of Saint Esperia, Beatrice completely hid her magical power in order to discreetly dispose of the saint. But she will not be able to put the girl in danger, because paladins are on duty around the clock in the temple, and they will quickly notice something is wrong. The face of the saint is gloomy from these thoughts. Beatrice herself cannot but know about the high degree of protection of the temple. In this case, the purpose of her visit remains an unsolvable mystery for the saint. Beatrice notices the gloom of the girl's thoughtful face. She asks if the saint is offended by her, which pulls the girl out of deep thought. Ostensibly upset, Beatrice pretends to understand the saint's negative attitude towards her unexpected visit and is about to leave the temple with the offerings. The saint cannot allow this. The church is now not in a position to refuse material assistance. She really wants to throw Beatrice out the door, but she makes an effort and goes against her pride for money. The saint is very curious to know why Beatrice does this. She pretends to be happy and smiles sweetly at Beatrice. She has to invite Beatrice to the temple, wish her a good time, and all this with a straight face. With these words, Beatrice, in the eyes of the saint, turned into a terrible monster who smiles maliciously, rejoicing in his victory. A saint from the capital of Saint Esperia, who is said to have a holiness and nobility in appearance, as well as charisma. In fact, this saint is just a worthless carbon copy of Liana. Beatrice is going to gradually break her soul in order to kill her later. To begin with, she wants to crush her pride and publish articles about how the girl bowed her head to money. This will deal a powerful blow to her reputation. As a sign of the first meeting, Beatrice wants to present the saint with a small gift as a friendly gesture. But this gift is really small. Outwardly, the chest with it seems very large and luxurious, but inside it there is only a handful of coins. Beatrice wants to embarrass the saint, who surely expects to see a chest filled with money, to see her reaction to a half-empty chest. The acolytes notice the weight of the chest when they pick it up, but do not have time to react when the lock on the chest breaks and its contents fall to the floor. The saint's eyes open wide as a pile of various treasures fall to the floor right at her feet. Beatrice is frightened. She did not expect to see such a pile of coins. The chest should have upset the saint, but for sure it only made her happy. There are so many precious stones that there is enough money to fill the entire pantry. And in addition to this chest, there are many more crammed with gold. The saint thanks Beatrice for the generous gift and notes that it must have been prepared by a person who knows the saint well. Beatrice begins to make excuses, hiding behind an imaginary younger brother who is allegedly possessed by the saint. She says that the saint will surely refuse such a generous gift, but the girl resourcefully responds to these words and is going to keep all the gifts for herself. The girl is furious. She remembers exactly how all these jewels ended up in the chest. Jack Casanova put them there the night before leaving. He personally asked Beatrice to give the saint and his gift, and even wanted to go to Esperia himself, but Beatrice did not give him permission to do so. Jack is the only one who can fill the void in Runabelt while Beatrice and Chrome are gone, with the help of spirit power and the ability to transform. The girl is going to refuse him and give him gifts, but Jack calls this request official, as one of the disaster magicians. He asks to be sure to give him his gift. Beatrice looks at him condescendingly. He distracts her from packing. Beatrice agreed, because in her opinion, there could be nothing worthwhile in Jack's preparations. She decides to ask Jack why he suddenly switched to the saint. Jack had always loved Liana, and even now his feelings for the queen had not changed, but Liana had never loved him. Jack does not think this is too important. It is enough for him that he can demonstrate his own feelings. Liana herself would never be able to love him. Jack realized this during their very first meeting. The girl began to severely beat him. Using fire magic, this threatened to burn the forest because the girl did not control the spreading fire. Jack begged her to stop. Normal people shouldn't attack anyone they meet in their path. At his words, Liana seemed to come to her senses. She looked at Jack with clear eyes and asked who he was. Throughout the battle, the girl saw him as an emperor and was terribly frightened when she found an ordinary man at her feet. Remembering this, Jack smiles stupidly and begins to justify his new love. It is impossible to command the heart. As a result, a small present, given from a devoted fan of the Saint Jack, greatly set Beatrice up and almost ruined her plans. But Liana has always taught Beatrice not to give up and to use any means to defeat her opponent. She proves this with the help of a game of chess. In case of lack of means to fight, Liana advises to put pressure on the weak points of the opponent, to hurt his pride. When such blows to self-esteem accumulate, the opponent will slowly begin to lose faith in himself, and then he himself will fall at the feet of Beatrice. Beatrice listens to her attentively and asks what to do, even if this method does not lead to victory. Nerves make her nails bite again, because even in the game of chess she has mastered over the past day, her opponent can outperform her. Liana pulls Beatrice's hand away from her face, asks her not to be too complicated, but the girl continues to worry about possible losses. Liana promises that even if a chess genius gets in Beatrice's way, he still won't be able to beat her, because there is no one smarter than Liana in this game. And it was she who taught Beatrice to play chess, and therefore there should be no one in the world whom Beatrice could not defeat. Therefore, she is greatly amazed by the loss during the saint's visit. She was beaten by a small child. The saint sits proudly on a chair in front of the amazed Beatrice. It was she who invited the girl to play chess, and does not regret her decision at all. Beatrice was at first willing to accept the idea of playing a game of chess because she thought it would be a great opportunity to show off her skills. However, the saint turned out to be better than her in absolutely everything, from chess and drawing to singing. During this time, Beatrice was not only unable to trample on the pride of the saint, but rather, on the contrary, helped her gain even more respect from the faithful. And chess has always been the game that Liana played better than anyone else in the world. And now the saint seems to be laughing at Beatrice, imitating her dead queen in everything. This senseless copying of her teacher, Liana, is perceived by Beatrice as an insult to her. At this rate, Beatrice risks simply being defeated and returning to Runabout with nothing. She decides to try another plan. The girl stopped a couple of servants in the corridor and asked them to pay her a minute of attention. The girl was going to treat them to unusual sweets. A few hours after that, the saint began to prepare for bed. She tiredly collapsed on the bed in her room. The girl sighed heavily at that moment, which puzzled Chrome, who was standing next to her. She smashed Beatrice to smithereens but was not pleased with herself. Her victories do not matter at all because they cannot affect the release of false articles, the price of melons, and much more. They are meaningless. The girl asks Chrome why he hasn't revealed the truth about her true identity to Beatrice. The man decided to first complete the necessary preparations for bed, because the hour is already late, and such conversations can take a lot of time. It had been a long time since the man had moved into the temple, and he had plenty of opportunities to tell Beatrice. No one prevented him from conveying all the necessary information in a letter. If Chrome had sent her a message, the temple would not have been in such a situation. However, Chrome tried to send Beatrice a letter, but the girl did not take it seriously. But she considered the story from the letter absurd. Chrome never received a response to his letter, as a result of which a situation arose when all means of maintaining communication were cut off. Even Liana herself won't have the courage to tell Beatrice the truth after this situation. But she can't just watch silently as the temple crumbles. Chrome unexpectedly comes up with a way to protect the temple from Beatrice. The saint is inspired and interested in his ideas. Chrome offers the girl to return to the world in the form of Liana and personally convince Beatrice. If the saintess returns to her body in Runabout, she will be able to regain her original power. In this case, the girl will no longer have to play the role of a saint, and the temple will no longer be threatened. This offer seems very tempting to Liana. She wants to return to Runabout, but she cannot leave the temple to the mercy of fate. Chrome takes the girl by the hand. She shudders. The man does not want to lose her because of the temple. The temple needs her as much as all the inhabitants of Runabout. This applies to Chrome himself too. He really misses Liana. He squeezes the girl's palm tighter in a burst of emotion. Her family is in Runabelta, among the Calamity Mages, not here, not in the temple, not in Holy Asperia. Chrome asks the girl not to forget about this. Memories of the past days spent next to Liana rush through his head. The girl looks at him as if she also returns to her past rebirth for a second and also experiences those beautiful days. She is about to say something to Chrome, but she is interrupted by a knock on the door that neither the saint nor Chrome expected. The two of them come to the door and ask who is behind it. Because the hour is already late, usually they do not come to the saint at this time. Beatrice's loud voice comes from behind the door. The saint immediately recognizes him. The girl apologizes for such a late visit and asks the girl to open the door. Beatrice is standing outside the door with a tray and tea in her hands. She asks the saint to give her some time, and at the same time grins maliciously. The girl found wonderful tea leaves, which she brewed especially for the saint. Tomorrow she will need to return home. That is why the girl allowed herself to come to the saint's room so late. She really wanted to spend time next to her for the last time. It is impossible that the food suddenly brought at such a late hour is absolutely normal. The saint feels a subtle aroma from the tea. Beatrice added to it a potion that Liana had once told her about. It made her tell only the truth. At the moment when a lie falls from the lips of the drinker, he suddenly feels pain, weak but rather unpleasant. Beatrice is going to find out the reason why the girl is pretending to be Liana in this way and get rid of her if necessary. But one doubt still sits in her head. She remembers the days she spent with Liana shortly before her death. Beatrice then made tea for her, quite ordinary, and brought it to Liana's art workshop. The girl refused the treat, tried to lie that she did not like tea, but Beatrice noticed how her hands were trembling. Now she really hopes that the saint will not imitate the queen even in such a trifle and will still drink her potion. However, at the sight of tea, Liana panics in her head. She tries to think sensibly, but fear is stronger than her. The person who poisoned her in one of her past lives and Beatrice are completely different people, and the potion in the tea is not a deadly poison. But remembering her friend and her big smile during the brutal murder, Liana compares her to Beatrice and begins to doubt her. She doesn't know what will happen if Beatrice really decides to end her. The girl puts pressure on the saint. And Liana can't stand it when Beatrice begins to hurry her up. She loses her temper and gets terribly angry. Unable to control herself, Liana brushed the cup and saucer off the table. They broke into small pieces. The tea ended up on the floor. Beatrice was furious. She did not expect such an exact imitation of the queen. The girl froze, unable to express her emotions. Liana also froze. She tried to understand what she had done. Sweat began to run down her tense face. The girl began to apologize to Beatrice, but it was too late. The girl got up from her chair and looked down at the saint. Beatrice began to heap insults on the saint, calling her a vile fake, an insignificant forgery, her rage flaring up and expressing itself in the form of green flames. The girl swung, raised her hand on the holy hand, and was about to strike with her magic power. The saint stepped back. But unexpectedly, Chrome appeared in front of the girl. He heroically shielded her with the help of his own powers. It was very difficult for Chrome to hold back Beatrice's onslaught. She had accumulated a lot of mana. She could not become so strong in just a few years. Chrome realized that Beatrice's mana was encased in a necklace that the girl had touched so often. After appearing in the room, she could not come without preparation. In this situation, Chrome is at a disadvantage. He understands this and shouts at the saint to dodge. A charge of magical power flies into the man, Liana is thrown aside, and Chrome himself finds himself in the back of the room. Beatrice lifts him into the air with her strength. She holds him by the neck, does not allow Chrome to breathe in or out. First of all, she really wants to get rid of him. She is already triumphant about her future victory, but she is distracted. She decides to deal with the culprit of her appearance here first. The saint tries not to betray her tension. If Beatrice continued to make a fuss, a squad of paladins would descend on the room, which was what calmed the saint, but Beatrice suddenly called her naive. She put the paladins to sleep, and they all took the sleeping pills the girl had given them. The saint had not expected this at all. Beatrice is strong, but she is almost powerless against so many enemies, so the girl decided to use such a cunning plan and treated everyone to sweets with sleeping pills. Foolishly, all the inhabitants of the temple gladly accepted her sweets, thanks to which Beatrice was convinced of their stupidity and naivety. Thanks to this, the girl can now easily deal with the saint without unnecessary witnesses. She swoops down on her, intending to strike. But her power does not reach the saint. She is stopped by a much more powerful sacred force. Beatrice is perplexed. The girl actually turns out to be a saint. Beatrice finds it very hard to believe this. The saint looks at her with a serious look. Magical power and sacred power are opposite to each other, but to be more precise, sacred power is stronger than magic. This is what Liana had always taught Beatrice, and they fought against Saint Esperia, in which many possessed sacred power. Defeating priests is difficult unless powerful magical power is applied to them, so Liana asked Beatrice to back down if she met a priest. She was worried about her and promised to give a good beating to anyone who went against Beatrice. The girl always remembered this. Right now, the slightest blow against the saint's shield caused her incredible pain. The girl's energy was many times greater than her own. Beatrice realized this after the first blows. The girl was so strong that, for all her magical power, Beatrice could not leave a scratch on her body. A rage arose in her, beads of sweat ran down her face, and the saint was undeniably real. A fake was out of the question, because even with a simple glance at the girl, a bright glow around her body was noticeable. But now, Beatrice couldn't put up with the insolence of this child. The saintess shouldn't copy the behavior of the enemy queen and thereby insult her. Beatrice tried to attack the child again, but the saint did not flinch from her powerful blow. She longed to unleash all her sacred power in one fell swoop, to put Beatrice on her shoulder blades. But in this case, Chrome can also get hit, and therefore the only thing that the saint can do at the moment is defend. However, such an active onslaught of Beatrice can lead to the fact that the girl suffers. The saint is in doubt. She cannot believe that Beatrice wants to get rid of the saint so badly. Beatrice hardly wanted to harm the saint. The purpose of her visit to the capital was probably to provoke the saint. If she had tried to kill the girl from the very beginning, she would have immediately mixed poison into the tea instead of the potion of truth. But now Beatrice lost the ability to think rationally and rushed into the attack. It is not clear what knocked her out of balance. The girl's pendant broke. Her hands trembled from active blows. Pain pierced her entire body. Beatrice could no longer stand on her feet. Chrome tried to get through to her, asking her to stop the fight because the girl could get hurt, but Beatrice shut him up with a scream and called him a traitor. She couldn't let the saint live because she felt she had greatly offended Liana and didn't deserve to live. The little one, not even worthy of the queen's little finger, dares to copy her, while also being an enemy of Liana, the saintess herself. Beatrice is going to get rid of her and raze the sacred capital to the ground, to do what Liana could not do. Her arms weaken, she can no longer attack, and only mutters to herself about wanting a confession from Liana. The girl's head drops. She can no longer hold it either. Now she is absolutely powerless. However, the saint makes no attempt to delay her or attack her. She looks at Beatrice in surprise and waits to see what she will say next. Beatrice thinks that she will, after all. She was waiting for death, and she could neither kill the saint nor meet Liana again. Unexpectedly for the girl, the saint begins to apologize to her for the pain caused, kneels down and takes Beatrice's hands in her palms. Beatrice asks her to repeat it, but the saint continues to apologize. She is sorry that she could not convey anything to the girl, and she had to suffer so much. Beatrice just wanted recognition, and it was for him that she had waited for Liana for so long, and for him she had gone to Asperia to kill the saint. But the girl did not even suspect about Liana's rebirth in this body, and began to guess only after the words of the saint, which seemed very familiar to her. While cleaning up spilled tea, Liana and Beatrice struck up a conversation about one of her past incarnations in which Liana was poisoned with tea. That's why Liana doesn't accept tea from other people, which is why she knocked over Beatrice's tray, and now she's terribly ashamed of it. She begins to apologize to Beatrice, and the girl responds by covering her hand with her own and interrupting the apology. Liana has nothing to apologize for. Beatrice's doubt seems quite natural. She accepts and understands Liana's actions. Liana became the person who helped the broken and desperate Beatrice get back on her feet. The girl cannot be angry with her. She promises not to hate Liana. Even if she begins to doubt Beatrice herself, she asks Liana not to blame herself for anything. A man who showed Beatrice how special she was, rather than obsessing over being the best. Liana takes off her gloves from Beatrice's hands and is sad that the girl has not gotten rid of her habit of biting her nails in excitement. It is at this moment that Beatrice recognizes her queen as a saint, the girl who helped her become herself. In the morning of the same day, Beatrice promises to return melon prices to normal and adjust everything, because now many publishing houses are under her control. The girl's eyes are swollen from the tears shed during the night. Liana finds fault with this, scolds Beatrice for forgetfulness because she needed to make a cold compress. Liana cannot remain silent about this problem. She and Beatrice communicate, not hiding even in front of the priests, because they do not hear them anyway. Only now does Beatrice realize how Jack tried to hint to her about Liana's rebirth as a saint. But she didn't understand his hints, so she expected to meet a cheap copy of Liana when she arrived in Asperia, not Liana herself. The saint asks Beatrice to slap Jack for not telling her about the queen's rebirth directly, but is refused. Jack was afraid to betray her because of the killer, who is still at large. After hearing this, the saint remembers how suspicious Beatrice was and begins to apologize. But the girl stops her again. Excessive suspicion is not the fault of the saint. She was forced to behave this way by external factors. Therefore, Beatrice refuses to accept an apology for the previous night and for past suspicions. The saint looks at her with gratitude and love. She accepts her friend's words and vows not to behave like this again. Last night, the saint revealed her true identity to Beatrice in order to finally unravel the tangle of misunderstanding. She desperately apologized to Beatrice so that she would not hate her, but the girl suddenly pulled the saint to her and began to hug her. Beatrice did not stop sobbing and repeated Liana's name without stopping, pressing the girl closer and closer to her. The old Liana would have told her to stop crying right away, but now she just stood there comforting her, and at some point, she burst into tears herself. After the girls cried, Chrome and Beatrice rebuilt the ruined room. In the process, they were arguing all the time. And the saint at this time ran around the church and erased the memories of that evening to the altar boys so that in the morning they would not have any suspicions. As a result, they worked all night in the sweat of their brows, but the time spent with friends seemed very fun to the saint. The saint told Beatrice her plans. She wanted to wait until she came of age to receive forbidden magic. Beatrice did not like this idea very much. However, she has no choice but to accept Liana's will and return home. The girl wishes the queen to grow up as soon as possible and get what she wants. Until her return, Beatrice vows to protect the temple and never to leave it without a reason. With these words, she hints at Chrome's behavior. The girls laugh at the man's irresponsibility, begin to laugh even harder when Beatrice remembers the incapacitated Jack. Beatrice receives Liana's confession. The girl gets control in her hands. Liana's words dispel all her anger. She thanks the saint for the time spent with her. For her, it is like a blessing. Beatrice wishes the girl all the best. Liana and Chrome listen with interest to her farewell speech. Beatrice smiles brightly, wishes the saint good health at parting, and, glowing with happiness, leaves the church. Soon after Beatrice left, the issue of false articles was resolved, as if they had never existed, and peace and quiet returned to the holy capital. And the saint began to study history. The lesson was taught to the girl by Bachman himself. He told her with interest about the division of the empire into 4 kingdoms. Classes seemed to the girl the most boring. She was always distracted in lessons and could not concentrate in any way. She herself is practically an encyclopedia of history, and everything she already knows is repeated to her for several hours a day. But the younger Georg listens attentively to all these boring stories because he knows almost nothing from the history course. Liana looks at him every time and admires his perseverance. He reminds her very much of George II. Genes cannot be deceived. After class, the girl receives confirmation that Georg is really interested in all the classes. She gets bored with this conversation and is going to go to Chrome. But today the girl has never seen Chrome. He seems to have evaporated. Georg says that Chrome went on a temporary vacation, which greatly surprises the saint. If Chrome needed to go somewhere, he always warned the girl about it, but now he did not even say a word about leaving. Apparently, the matter turned out to be so urgent, the saint remembers where he could have gone so soon. The man headed to Runabout, where a gathering of former comrades was already waiting for him. The faces of each of them expressed incredible seriousness. Shadows fell on them. Some of the Calamity magicians were not present in person, but communicated remotely. Chrome formally thanked all those who had arrived and encouraged them to start the meeting and listen to the reports. Runabout's Magic Council is a meeting of wizards in which only Liana and 6 disasters can take part. But after Liana's death, the purpose of the meeting was changed. Now, even those disasters that have long left the kingdom gather in Runabout. When disasters begin to listen to the reports, Jack is the first to speak, praising his unearthly beauty, which only multiplies over the years. After it, Beatrice tells how she learned to sign documents with both hands. Then an unknown magician celebrates his success in business. They all talk about some stupid things, and this makes Chrome mad. He does not restrain himself and shouts at the magicians. Meetings after Liana's death are held in order to find the criminal who harmed her, but instead of evidence, the mages discuss all sorts of nonsense. Chrome is very displeased with this. He lectures the magicians, but he is interrupted by Jack, who thinks all this is useless, because the magicians have been looking for the killer for more than 60 years. But they were even able to get on his trail. The result of the meetings was always the same. Everyone was tired of it. The cause of Liana's death is unknown. By the time the mages found the girl, she was already dead. That day, all the magi realized how incompetent they were. They couldn't even protect their own queen. No trace of an outside presence was found. Someone had either entered the building, using magical powers much more powerful than those of all magicians. But there is no mage in the world stronger than Liana, and if you add up all these facts, you get a very interesting conclusion, which Jack notices. Among the Calamity mages, there is a traitor who killed the queen 60 years ago and has not yet been discovered. In the course of the discussion, the mages went back to the beginning. They had nothing, no facts, not even speculation. Chrome once hoped that all mages were bound by a single desire to make Liana's wish come true, but it turns out that there is someone who betrayed both her and the mages. The meeting was over and Chrome returned to his office, where an unpleasant surprise awaited him in the form of a mess on the desk with documents. he was terribly. Beatrice was ashamed of Jack's behavior in causing this chaos on the table, and Jack began to apologize unconvincingly. Beatrice makes excuses, there are really a lot of things to do, and only Chrome knows how to properly deal with them. Jack cannot be relied on at all. Jack responds by bragging about a beautiful swan he made out of paper and left on the table, which he also brings out Beatrice. Chrome tries to calm his friends down and with a straight face sits down to write documents, which are drawn in various scribbles and are already clearly unreadable. Jack and Beatrice ask why he's acting so strangely and decide it's because of today's meeting. They begin to giggle at Chrome, try to make him laugh, but he sits with a stony face and thinks about something important, known only to him. Beatrice notices the difference between today's meeting and the previous ones. This time, the three of them know about Leanna's new rebirth. Surely this is the reason for Chrome's concern. Jack begins to giggle harder. Chrome's head is completely filled with thoughts of Leanna, and this makes him laugh. Chrome does not answer his friends, snaps his fingers, and uses magical powers to carry them out of the office, closing the door. He is really very worried. He does not want to face the loss of Leanna again. Therefore, Chrome needs to return the girl back to Runabout as soon as possible, but remembering her reaction to this proposal, Chrome thinks. The girl said that she did not want to leave Asperia because there she was surrounded by love and care, and somewhere else there was forbidden magic. But the Calamity Mages must find Leanna's killer before she grows up, and before the killer finds her himself. Chrome postpones these thoughts for later. First, he needs to deal with a bunch of documents. If Georg II had been in Runabelt, he would have quickly sorted out the documents. He coped with this kind of duties perfectly. But he had never come to the meetings and had long since disappeared from the radar of the disaster mages. His place had been empty for a very long time. The man has not been seen since the day of Leanna's death. He was too upset when he learned about the death of the girl. Chrome doesn't even know if he's still alive. These thoughts bother the magician, but they are not too important, so he returns to the documents. Around the same time, the saint is sitting in history classes. She is warned about an imminent pilgrimage to the Holy Land. The girl is very surprised. With a bright smile, Bachman announces that the saint is about to go to a small town with a sacred spring, the Esplanade. He talked about it several times in lessons. They inspire Bachman very much, but his holy inspiration is still not conveyed in any way. The saint does not listen to him at all in class, and does not remember anything about this city. She is saved from the annoying Bachman by the appearance of an unknown man. He is a paladin from the Esplanade. His name is Joseph. He is extremely ready to meet the saint in person. A man is tasked with guarding the saint during a pilgrimage to the Holy Land this year. He convinces the girl of his loyalty. He tells the girl that other saints have come down to earth before her, and the very first one was among them. The saint of all beginnings, Galatea. She first settled in the Esplanade and there, after a long journey, completed her life's path. That is why the current saint needs to visit the Esplanade. She must look at the lands where the first saint lived. The saint sees no point in using such a grandiose word as pilgrimage to denote a journey to a neighboring city. But the road to the Esplanade, according to Joseph, will take about 15 days, and the size of the saint's step can take all 30. To walk this path, looking back on your life, that's what it means to go on a pilgrimage, but the saint doesn't like the idea at all. She wants to go in a carriage. Joseph asks the saint not to worry about the difficulties during the journey, because she will be accompanied by George, but the saint objects again, because Georg is as young as she is. The girl does not understand why she has to go through such difficulties. She does not like the idea of travel at all. In part, it was because when the saint began to save the world, Leanna died over and over again in a continuous cycle of reincarnation. There were even cases when Leanna died before she had time to let out her first scream. The fact that she did not go crazy after such a thing is a real miracle. The girl resents the gods for giving her such a life and does not understand their desire to lead Leanna in the footsteps of the incarnation of the goddess in this rebirth. Joseph tries to get the saint interested in the journey. He knows something about the forbidden magic that the saint is so passionate about. The Esplanade contains records of forbidden magic, a fact that really piques Leanna's interest. The girl begins to question Joseph and learns that the city keeps records of absolutely everything that happened in the Empire and after the war, in the kingdoms. In the Esplanade, there are records of the life of Galatea, the birth of Saint Asperia, and of course the story of forbidden magic. The saint decides to check with Bachman if this is true, to which she receives an affirmative answer and begins to swear at the man. Bachman could have told her about the recordings, and he could have immediately shown forbidden magic. But the man answers all her arguments with only his own. The girl is still too young. The saint would never get through to this stubborn man, and it was pointless to look for magic in the capital. She had already searched every corner. There is nothing left but to grab the thread that leads to forbidden magic. The saint agrees to the pilgrimage. She was so excited about the idea of finding information about forbidden magic that she immediately ran to pack her bags and urged everyone to start preparing immediately. Georg followed the girl running ahead, but he had to stop abruptly when Joseph addressed him by his old name, Luke. But now this is no longer the boy's name. He inherited the titular name of the family, Georg. Joseph realizes his mistake and apologizes to Georg. A very long time has passed since their last meeting, so Joseph offers the boy to talk. The man is his uncle. Georg grew up a lot during the time that he did not see his uncle. Joseph heard that his nephew received the patronage of the saint. Georg is modest, says that people exaggerate his achievements, but Joseph disagrees with him and continues his eulogy with a snide smile. Joseph decides to get straight to the point. He believes that the pilgrimage is a great chance for George to win the heart of the saint, especially during Chrome's absence. In the past, the George family had a huge influence, but George II ruined their reputation, and the family's honor and glory were destroyed. But now, with the birth of the saint, the George family has a chance to revive their former honor and glory. Joseph persuades George Jr. to become the husband of the saint in the future. This should wash away all the shameful past of the family. Georg wants to object. He does not like this idea, but Joseph looks at him with a menacing look, and the boy is lost, unable to answer. His uncle belittles him, persuades him not to give Saint Lame or someone like him, puts psychological pressure on his nephew. Joseph asks Georg not to be timid and to think first of all about himself and his family, asks not to forget that he is the hope of their family. Georg presses his lips tightly. He knows perfectly well how long their family has endured the shame caused by George II and what exactly Uncle Joseph wants. But he does not want to resort to such methods of solving problems, because this is a real use of the feelings of the saint. The George family is a family of paladins who have been devoted to the temple for many centuries, the husband of Saint Galatea coming from this family. A family of holy knights with a high reputation, within which only the best and bravest deserve to bear the titular name of George. The saint walks around the church and tries to find the younger George, who still does not respond to her call. Georg and Joseph notice the girl. The uncle begins to press on George harder, asks him to go to the girl as soon as possible. He puts his hand on the boy's shoulder, calls him the last hope of the family. Georg is made drooping by such manipulations. George headed towards the saint after the denigration of the family's honor. The titular name George became a shackle and a burden that the boy was forced to carry on himself. Bachman proves to the saint that she will go on a pilgrimage on foot, but the saint sees a carriage in front of her quite clearly. The girl was lied to about a 30-day journey on foot. Out of anger, she lashes out at the Holy Father and begins to beat him again. Maria appears and clarifies the situation to the girl. She, together with Bachman, desperately asked for indulgence because the saint is still very young for such campaigns. The saint thanks Mary, remembers that Esplanade is George's hometown, and when George approaches her, she wonders why he did not tell her about it. The boy does not make very convincing excuses, notifies the saint of his imminent departure, and leaves, leaving an unpleasant aftertaste on the saint's mood. The girl begins to suspect something is wrong. George's manner of speech has changed. He seems to have distanced himself. Something has clearly happened that the saint does not know about. The saint shares her feelings about George with Mary. The woman thinks that the boy is so nervous because he has not been home for a long time. The saint despises him for this because she is going to the Esplanade for the first time, but she is not nervous at all. Maria shares her feelings. She also goes to the Esplanade for the first time, which amazes the saint, and she is very ashamed of it, because she is a priest and is obliged to visit the Holy Land at least once. Maria was always an ordinary child, and when other clergymen were transferred to large churches, she continued to stay in the small one. But Maria was happy. She had relatives and best friends. She did not even dream of a trip to the Holy Land. And then, by a happy coincidence, she was transferred to the Holy Asperia, where, after a huge amount of time, the woman met the saint. The girl listened to the woman's story with fascination, amazed at the interesting twists and turns of Maria's fate, which practically turned her life upside down. The saint understands that Mary, who is caring for her, has never left the holy capital, which means that she has never left the temple. In connection with these reflections, the girl suggests that Maria go on vacation after returning from the trip. Maria is surprised. The saint does not want Mary to experience difficulties because of her, because allowing a woman to work without ever taking a vacation is simply terrible. Maria begins to laugh after the girl's words. The saint is mad about this because she cannot help but worry about the health of her loved one. But Mary laughs because among the servants of the temple, the saint became the second person who said such words to Mary. In such a dull and suffocating place as the temple, there is another person who says the right things. The saint asks with interest who he is. Maria embarrassedly replies that for the first time her first love began to worry about her vacation. The saint opens her mouth wide in shock, anticipating an interesting story. The saint cries out with admiration, which frightens George, who is walking outside, and asks Mary to tell her more about this love, which confuses her even more. Contrary to the expectations of the saint, this person turns out to be not Mary's friend, whom she spoke about earlier, but a certain knight, whom the woman remembers with a smile. Mary was then 10 years old. The great knights came to her small temple for the first time, whom she greatly admired, and one of them was remembered by her forever. It was then that their first meeting took place. The man reminded the girl of the prince from a fairy tale with his skills, figure, and appearance in general. When Maria saw him, the girl was covered with a wave of admiration. She could not take her eyes off the knight. Strange feelings began to arise in her. But when Maria realized that this was a love, the man had already left the temple, and she never confessed to him. But she kept her feelings to this day. The saint sees such embarrassment of a woman for the first time. The knight she admires must now be a decrepit old man, and Mary loves him anyway. The girl decides to help Maria reunite with this man, cannot restrain herself, and asks who he is. Maria thanks the girl for her kindness, but she will not be able to reunite with the knight because the man left the temple a long time ago, and she does not know where he is now. At the same moment, George IV notices something on the road and loudly calls on all the servants of the goddess to stay on the alert. The carriage stops abruptly. The girls hear Georg's cry and are very frightened. They are very worried about the boy and the other servants. The saint is horrified, thinking about what could have happened outside. The girl does not want to lose her 101st life at all. But her fears turned out to be in vain. Now the saint has to huddle in a small carriage next to George, who cannot go outside. The reason for this is a stranger who previously caused the carriage to stop. It was he who became the culprit of all the troubles. Maria, as soon as he was brought into the carriage, immediately forgot about the saint and rushed to help the man, to take care of him. The man was found on a mountain path on the way to the esplanade. He was dirty and skinny, there was no one to help him, and so the priests decided to take matters into their own hands. George had to sit inside the carriage because he, as a bodyguard, could not leave the saint alone with a stranger. They decided to take the man to the city. The saint cannot understand how Mary can help such a strange individual. The man at this moment comes to his senses and asks who saved him. Mary introduces herself as a person from the temple, and the man calls her and others like her masters of interfering in their own business. He clearly does not like the company of priests. The saint is infuriated by his behavior. The girl asks him to choose his expressions and at least not to be rude, since he is not capable of gratitude. She is so angry with the man that she decides to cure him with the help of a sacred power so that he quickly comes to his senses and understands what he is doing. But the man hits the girl the arm, which greatly frightens George and Maria. The boy prepares to rush to the defense of the saint. However, the man no longer takes any action, just asks the girl not to touch him. The saint's hand turned very red from his blow. The saint cannot say anything from shock. She does not like this behavior of the stranger. The man no longer listens to her, only silently turns to the wall. After that, he calls the girl a fake saint. The saint gets angry, begins to scream, and only Mary, who arrives in time, keeps her from attacking the man. The girl is outraged by this behavior of Mary. The patience of the saint has a limit that the man is about to cross. Mary has only one argument. The stranger is sick, and therefore behaves like this. He only needs the help of priests. The saint has nothing to answer her. The girl runs out of the carriage. As soon as the opportunity arises, she opens the door so abruptly that she does not even notice how Josefa hits her. She leaves Maria alone with the man, and she wants to go to the esplanade through the forest to come first. Today is a bad day for the girl. Maria is having a hard time because of a stranger, and the saint cannot even help her because the man ignores her. But nevertheless, the girl is terribly angry that Maria took not her, but the side of the man in their dispute. In fact, it is not surprising that Maria prefers the patient. Because she likes to take care of others, she is a very kind person. Unexpectedly, the saint is called out. It seems to the girl that Mary has come to her senses and still remembered the existence of the most important, the saint. She turns around with her eyes closed and thanks Maria for her attention, for the work put into her care. But it turns out all this time it was not Mary who ran after the girl, but George, whom the woman sent to protect the saint, and she herself still remained next to the stranger. Maria has not observed such whims of the saint for a long time. She really wants to help a man. She cannot break down and run after the girl, leaving him alone. The woman enters the carriage and asks the man to stand up to bandage and treat his wounds. He must be in great pain. The stranger has all his ribs broken, but he steadfastly withstood the bandage. No one can cure him now because the sacred power is dangerous for him. Maria understood this because she felt the magical energy in the stranger. She had spent her whole life in the temple and had learned to distinguish magicians from ordinary people. The man did not react to these words and only asked what Maria wanted for help. The woman wanted the man to confirm his gratitude with deeds. The stranger does not want to pay for help with work, tries to scare Maria with his status, but now for the woman he is just a patient. Maria understands that the man hates the temple with all his heart. He is very stubborn, but she is still filled with determination to help him. Part of her determination stems from the fact that the man bears a strong resemblance to the knight who saved Mary as a child. The man does not believe in what Maria says, and the woman decides to tell him a story from her childhood. The story of an ordinary child who was not particularly good at something and who did not have some ordinary abilities. The girl was named Maria in an orphanage. She was no different from ordinary children. Maria's best friend was called Sophia. The girls spent almost all the time together until one day Sophia went missing. She was not the first missing child. Maria knew that she would not be found. Rumors about the disappearance of young clergymen spread very quickly. Maria was very frightened by the thought of Sophia's disappearance. She hoped that her friend had just gone somewhere, and she was convinced of this when she saw the silhouette of Sophia in the forest. Maria rushed after the girl, repeating her name non-stop. She was very happy about the unexpected return of her friend. Catching up with Sophia, Maria grabbed her hand in an attempt to stop her, but the girl did not stop running away. Everyone is very worried about Sophia. No one knew where she had gone, and therefore they immediately decided that the girl was missing. Maria asks the girl to return home as soon as possible. However, Sophia turns her head towards Maria, and it turns out that the girl has no face. In its place, she only has black slime. The monster in the form of Sophia makes terrible sounds and moves towards Maria. The girl backs away. The monster loses its human form and looms over Mary, stretching its huge clawed hand towards her. It swings at Maria. The girl does not have time to move away. Seized with terror, she cannot move from her place and prepares to take the blow. But suddenly a man appears from the forest. The light of his sword gives Maria hope for salvation. This knight saved her life, and he later became Mary's first love. His woman will never forget. Upon arriving in Esplanade, the saint notices that all the people in the city are red-haired, and they all greet the girl with great joy. The saint mistakes all the people in the city for members of George's family, wants to ask her bodyguard about it, but accidentally confuses him with some boy. The trip from Esperia to the Esplanade took 4 days, during which time the saint managed to get tired, and she was greatly pleased with the presence of delicious food in this rural area. Mountains of delicious food lie in front of the girl on the table. They wish her bon appetit, and the saint is happy to eat. Georg worries about her, asks her to eat a little more slowly so that the girl does not develop indigestion. Not at all worried, the woman approaches Georg from behind. She has not eaten with the boy at the same table for a long time, so she asks him to eat properly. The woman turns out to be Mother George, whom the boy sincerely thanks and for the first time in a long time sincerely smiles. The saint is pleased with such changes in the boy's behavior. He finally managed to relax in the circle of his family, which he had not seen for a long time. But the saint rejoices exactly until she hears the voice of Mary, who is sincerely happy for the happy girl. After the incident in the carriage, the saint is in a state of cold war with Mary, but only unilaterally. The saint does not speak to her. The victim rescued on the way to the city was given a place to live and was provided with assistance, so after her arrival, the saint never saw him. But the girl is only happy about it. The annoying eyesore has finally disappeared. Now the saint is already up to her neck with her own affairs. In the middle of the night, the saint opened the window of her room and threw a rope to the ground, which she had previously knitted from sheets, tablecloths, and other fabrics. The rope turned out to be very strong and easily withstood the weight of the girl. She considers such an escape to be the easiest possible. The records of forbidden magic are right under the saint's nose. Because of this knowledge, she cannot sleep. In the evening before the escape, the girl asked Mother George about forbidden magic, which greatly pleased the woman. The saint's craving for knowledge delighted her. The woman said that the records related to forbidden magic are in the library of the clock tower. The saint tried to find out where this tower was, and Mother George gladly told her everything she knew. The tower is located in the western part of the Esplanade Forest, where the saint came. The tower towers over the trees in the forest. The girl looks at her with confidence. There is magic in this tower that can put an end to her reincarnations. The saint resolutely steps forward, accidentally stepping on a branch, the crunch of which attracts the attention of a stranger sitting in the forest on the lakes. The man sat by the water, washed, shaved, and remembered Mary's stories about the knight who saved her. He strongly reminded Mary of this knight, but the woman did not care at all whether he was really the same knight or not. The woman just wanted to repay someone with the care she received from the knight in her distant childhood. And so Maria asks the man to repay her in kind and offers the stranger to take care of someone as a payment for the help provided. The man tried to have nothing to do with the temple anymore, but now, because of his character, he cannot help but repay the help he received. He reacts to the sound of the saint's footsteps, whose path to the tower passes through his secluded place. The saint is very frightened when she sees a stranger. It is difficult for her to recognize him because of the dirt which is no longer on his face. He was caught in the girl's way at the wrong time. The man thought that he heard the sounds of a wild animal moving. He voiced it aloud and got up from the stump on which he had been sitting before. The saint had already heard such words somewhere. The scene, the situation, and the man's voice seemed very familiar to her at that very moment. All of this brought back memories of a man she had known when she was the queen of Runebelt's calamities. The girl projected the words and image of her former acquaintance onto the man and even noticed the external resemblance. She had no doubts that the man was familiar to her. All the threads came together. The saint realized the moment the man looked at her with his stern gaze. She was awkwardly silent from shock for a couple of seconds. Peering at his slightly changed appearance, she could not believe her eyes. George II was definitely standing in front of the girl, there could be no doubt, and when the saint voiced her assumptions, he angrily attacked her. George swung at the girl, immobilized her with a powerful blow against a tree. He did not want his identity to become known to the priests. Due to the saint's knowledge of his true identity, George cannot let the girl go. She will definitely hand everything over to the servants of the goddess. He is going to kill her. The girl begins to run away from the man, but he is not going to let her go. A stone thrown by a man flies at the holy at great speed. The girl is saved from death by chance. She falls, and the stone crashes into a tree column. Its bark begins to crumble into small pieces. A man cannot control his power. The saint remembered this problem of his thanks to her past life. George really wanted to finish off the saint quickly, but the girl complicated everything and began to run away from him. She is very angry because of his disrespect. The girl tries to stop the murder attempt by voicing her status. She wants to say who she really is, but the man does not want to listen to her. The saint then opens her mouth to introduce herself as another reincarnation of Liana, but falls silent without confessing. The only thing that stops her is the promise she made to Crom the day before. The sin of anger asked her not to reveal her identity under any circumstances for the sake of safety. The girl tried to refuse this promise because she cannot suspect the murder of everyone she knew in a past life. She does not want a situation similar to that with Beatrice to be repeated. Crom listens to the girl. He offers a compromise. The girl will tell someone about her true identity only in the presence of Crom nearby. Someone will be happy to see Liana back, but on the other hand, there may be those who want to kill her, and both Crom and Liana are well aware of this. The saint agreed to this oath and now regrets it very much, because now Crom is not around, and it would be very useful to reveal her identity. Now the girl is unable to defeat George II. She will not even be able to escape the man's swings, intending to hit the girl in the face. However, the saint is not going to give up just like that. The girl remembers the sacred power and tries to protect herself with it. The man was distracted, and the saint had a chance to escape, which she decided to use, but to no avail. The man caught up with her and stabbed. As a descendant of paladins, George has extensive experience with the holy power. It does not injure him. The saint lies in the arms of a man unconscious from the blow. George II really does not want to kill the child, but he cannot leave alive a person who recognizes him. George II, a paladin who inherited the sword from George I, he lived all his life as a paladin, was loyal to the priests, considered their beliefs to be his own. He made many achievements and would have continued to serve Saint Asperia until his death if he had not come face to face with Lyanna. People considered the disappearance of young priests to be the tricks of a witch. She was blamed for the problems of the entire continent. It was with these problems and beliefs that the people came to George II, who was supposed to rid the world of the witch with his sword. The battlefield with the witch looked terrifying. Her incredible magical power amazed people watching what was happening. The two paladins, unable to withstand the witch's terrifying power, fled the battlefield, leaving George II alone with the threat. The men were afraid to meet their death on the battlefield, and Georg could not take his eyes off the magical power that gradually covered the entire field. He clearly felt that the mana was getting denser as he approached the source of magic. He tried to imagine what the well-known witch looked like. She was described as a scary sorceress with sharp claws, a terrible monster that devoured children, and that was exactly what George had expected to see. But his expectations were not met. The appearance of the walking disaster differed from the descriptions made by people. The witch did not have creepy eyes or sharp claws. She did not look like a monster at all. The most ordinary person stood in front of George. The girl paid attention to the man, called him a misunderstanding. He seemed to her very similar to a bear. Georg was outraged. The girl clearly wanted to relax his vigilance with her appearance, and then attack and take his life. But Georg should not have bought into this trick. The man began an official appeal to the girl, tried to intimidate her with his titles, but Lyanna did not react to this in any way. The man's actions did not even amuse her. George II, in Lyanna's opinion, talked too much, and she decided to shut him up by sending him somewhere in the sky with a powerful snap of her fingers. George did not even have time to react to her actions. He was trying to draw his sword at the moment when Lyanna's fingers painfully hit him on the forehead. This day was the moment of the first meeting of Lyanna and George, but it remained only in George's memory. The girl did not remember this meeting. After such a powerful dream, he began to have a strange dream in which the witch was 10 times larger than any normal person and despised George. She called him a little bear again and sent him flying, and Georg really felt like a little bear at that moment. At the same moment, Georg woke up screaming. Crowds of people were bustling around him, and he was, as it turned out, in the infirmary. The man could not understand how he had ended up here, and then he remembered that the witch had thrown him so far with her blow that he flew all the way to the paladin camp. At the same time, he remembers the escaped paladins and decides to ask if they have returned to the camp, but the priests take his words as nonsense. They justify his strange speeches by the witch's attack, after which the man's consciousness could be confused. George proves them the opposite. George saw with his own eyes how men fled the battlefield in fear, but the priests do not believe him, because great paladins cannot be frightened and run away. The man begins to be convinced of the fallacy of his judgments. Because all the paladins have studied the basics, they probably went on the attack to the very end to kill the witch. Everyone's opinion is literally crammed into George's head, reminding him who the priests are really at once, that the witch and only the witch is to blame for everything. They lag behind the man only after admitting that he is wrong. He is praised, and George begins to doubt the actions of the temple more and more. Hostility arises in him. From that day on, cracks began to appear in Georg's beliefs. Soon they completely broke, and the man followed Lyanna. He tries to understand what a girl would do in his place, and decides that he still needs to kill the saint, because she can reveal his identity if she is released. George cannot leave alive the one who knows about him. The man swings and apparently is going to break the girl's neck, ensuring her a painless death. Suddenly, something stops his hand and does not allow him to strike. The man turns his head in anger. He is restrained from the blow by Jack's spirits, which surprises George II, because Jack is not supposed to be here now. Loud sounds of footsteps begin to be heard from the forest. Georg realizes that someone is running at him. He jumps to the side at the very last moment, Jack's spirit still not letting go of his hand, and the cloud of dust he has just raised blocks the view. Chrome stands in front of George in a tense pose, ready to attack, clutching a sword in one hand and holding the saint in the other. Chrome, being in Runabout, quickly helped his comrades deal with the documents. Jack was so inspired that he asked Chrome to stay in the city. Chrome rudely shut him up, and Jack calmly agreed that Chrome couldn't stay because he had the saint's protection on his shoulders. And as a sign of his help with the documents, Jack decides to create a special delivery for Chrome to the saint with the help of spirit magic. During the transfer, Jack spent too much energy, and now he feels tired. The saint was too far away in some wilderness. The movement was only possible because Jack had attached a spirit to the Holy Spirit so that it would be possible to track where the girl was. Suddenly, the spirits begin to fly away from the tired Jack. He is unable to run after them and cannot control his little friends either. Following the spirits, Chrome also breaks down. He notices something in the thicket of the forest. Jack is frightened by such sharpness in his movements, but still runs after the man. Between the trees, Chrome spotted the figure of George II, who was about to kill the saint, and rushed at him, intending to strike with his sword. If George had not let the saint go, he would have been left without an arm, and the rumors that Chrome had become the saint's dog had reached George, so he was not at all surprised by his appearance. But nevertheless, Georg did not expect that for the sake of the girl, Chrome would raise his hand against him. He was disappointed in him. Chrome is also not too happy to meet, and Georg's behavior also does not suit him. The man wants to know where Georg has been disappearing all these years. The man does not give a specific answer, lies that he has been sleeping all this time. Chrome breaks down into screaming. He is clearly too nervous. It seems to the man that George has already learned about the rebirth of Liana in the body of the saint, and that is why he tried to kill the girl. George could well have done it. A tired Jack finally comes out of the forest. Everyone left him alone. In the forest, the guy is very unhappy with this. But all feelings fade into the background when Jack notices a suspicious red-haired stranger in front of him and Chrome, furiously pointing a sword in his direction. It dawns on Jack that the stranger is George II. When he sees the little saint in Chrome's arms, the girl has been attacked. It can be seen on her face. The man is frightened, cannot stand it, and runs up to George to beat him. In order to dare to attack the saint, you need to go crazy. While Jack and George too are arguing loudly, the saint wakes up in Chrome's arms. She does not understand where she is and what is happening. The appearance of Chrome puzzles her. At this time, Georg notices the strangeness of what is happening. Chrome has never treated anyone the way he now treats the saint. The only object of his adoration was Liana. Georg remembered for the rest of his life the atmosphere of the scenes of interaction between them, which he had to observe. Chrome and Liana often spent time together. The girl always lost her temper easily, and Chrome calmed her down over and over again. And now he behaves in the same way, calms down the saint, who in George's eyes becomes too similar in character to Liana. Suddenly, the voices of the agitated Maria and George begin to be heard from the forest. They are looking for the saint, and they are frightened by the loud noises that come from the forest. The girl was caught on a secret escape. Now she is being scolded for causing trouble to the priests. Chrome puts the frightened girl on the ground. The Calamity Mages are forced to leave the girl because Chrome is on vacation, and Jack is known to everyone as the messenger of Runabelt. They should not be here. The girl is afraid to be left alone with George, but the magicians promise to protect her from a distance. Chrome, with gestures, threatens George with reprisals in case of an attack on the saint. The man's behavior seems amusing. He giggles, and Chrome and Jack retreat deep into the thicket of the forest, leaving the saint and George alone. George swears at Chrome's still bad temper. The saint ignores his words. She is too angry. The girl is so mad that she begins to threaten George with slander, wants to lie to the priests that he kidnapped her because in this case she will not be scolded. Her actions and words do not correspond to such a young age. The girl has an overly calculating mind. She reminds George of one of his acquaintances. He remembers Liana. In the distant past, he approached a girl to ask her for a job, and the girl called him a lazy person, unable to come up with something to do. In this regard, Liana awarded George the title of idleness, and remembering this, Georg understands that the girl's cunning nature has not changed at all. The man finally recognizes Liana in her new incarnation. The girl is very frightened. She cannot understand how he could guess. An evil George and a frightened Maria appear from the forest. The boy is about to attack George II. He is sure that the man is responsible for the disappearance of the saint. The girl sees this as an ideal opportunity to get rid of George II and is going to slander the man, saying that he really kidnapped her. But Georg interrupts the saint, tells the real story from his advantageous side, lies that he tried to return the girl home, and she stubbornly ran away from him into the forest. Maria and Georg thank the man for his cooperation. They have nothing to say for their inattention. They do not listen to the girl's excuses at all, because several of her brilliant achievements in the field of escape in the past speak against her at once. The saint cannot refute this in any way. Mary is extremely upset. The girl should not have created problems in such a place far from the temple. However, Maria is not able to be angry for a long time. She loves the saint very much and was actually glad to find the girl alive and unharmed. Everything else is not important to her. The saint is very ashamed of this behavior. She sincerely apologizes for making Mary worry. The girls hug as a sign of reunion. Saint George II is entitled to a reward for his salvation, but he refuses it and asks the girl to give him a job as a reward. He lies that he only wants to repay the girl for the help she gave him earlier, but the saint knows about his true identity and does not believe the man at all. Early in the morning, the saint orders a man to catch fish, 100 fresh fish. Maria thinks that the girl burdens George too much. The girl does not agree with her, because if a man wants to repay for help, he must try. She is not going to forgive the man for his insults, does not want to let him near her, and asks not to return until he has caught exactly 100 fish. She tries to intimidate George, but the man does not react to her words properly. He smiles foolishly and swears his loyalty to the saint. The girl does not know what to answer to this. She begins to shake. George is amazed at the optimism of the man. No one has ever reacted like this to the orders of the saint. The saint backs away, tries to move away from the man as far as possible, and goes behind George, who is watching her actions in bewilderment. She asks the boy to go after George II as an observer, and other paladins can also perform the duties of a bodyguard. But none of them will agree to watch a stranger. Only Georg can do it. The man grabs the boy on his shoulders and pulls him along. George really does not want to go with him, and the saint sees this as a good way to reunite the George family. The presence of George II has a strong effect on the saint's nerves. She is anxious because in a past life, he constantly confessed his love to her. In addition, after arriving at the esplanade, those around her by hook or by crook try to connect the saint with George. The girl is unpleasant. The saint decides to figure out the reasons for this behavior of people a little later. Mother George approaches her from behind. She asks the girl to follow her. All the saint's thoughts are now aimed at gaining knowledge about forbidden magic. It had been a few days since she had arrived in the city, and the day had finally come when she would be able to get to the West Tower. The saint's occupation in the tower begins. She is given a bunch of thick books, which are a collection of Saint Galatia's diaries. The girl has been reading these boring books for several hours. She is simply sick of their number, but the priests only push her more and more. George's mother informs that in this lesson, information about forbidden magic will appear in Galatia's diaries, which inspires the saint. However, the girl is surprised by this. Information about forbidden magic should not be in Galatia's diaries because it was created by the magician Runabelta, and not the saint. George's mother says that this will be the topic of their lesson. She is going to discuss with the girl the use of forbidden magic in the past. Once upon a time, it was used by a man with bad intentions. A catastrophe began, which only the union of Saint Galatia and George I could stop. Later, upon seeing this historical record, the previous Holy Father found forbidden magic too dangerous and joined forces with Runabelt to seal it away. He was afraid of using this power again, and the saint didn't know all this. She didn't think that forbidden magic was related to the temple and not to the teacher. She is upset by this because all her life Liana thought that the teacher had no secrets from her, but it turns out that he lied to her all the time. The saint was the only person who was not aware of such important information. Her high position was of no use. She was not told anything. Now she has to think about the people she has encountered before, many of whom probably knew the truth about forbidden magic, but did not tell her anything. With these thoughts in mind, Georg II was the first to come to her mind, then the Georg family, and if he had known anything, he would certainly have told the girl about it. George II is the most devoted of all disasters. The saint is convinced of this. But the girl does not know that